Fly to Chinatown. What up? Jacob Bowling. Welcome back. For 27 months. Says Joel, you are awesome. I'm very happy to be a friend of yours. I'm happy to be a member of the best community in the world, the Buttersock Cult. Hell yeah, Jacob. Thank you so much for your 27 months of support. Hello, everyone. What is new? Northern Illinois. You still getting snow in Northern Illinois? You like this music? Me too. A little 80s Japanese city pop. Can't go wrong, can you? Resident blind guy, hello, my friend. Were you born blind, or was it acquired later in life? Yo, Iris, what's up? There's Mega. What's up, Mega? Andrew. Sunday was another planned day, wasn't it? It was just a compilation, yeah, for Mondays. What's a fire lookout? It's basically like a person like literally lives in the forest, isolated to watch out for fires in like national forests and stuff, like fire towers, that kind of thing. It's a pretty interesting concept. What is a fire lookout? Fire lookout is a person assigned to the duty to look for fire from atop a building known as a fire lookout tower. These towers are used in remote areas, normally on mountaintops with high elevation and a good view of the surrounding terrain. Yes. Happy Wednesday. What happened to your Buttersock cult status? I don't know. Sometimes people get gifted and maybe the month is up, but welcome, Michelle. Glad to see you. For anybody who's new, we're just chilling. And for another 16 minutes or so, chit-chatting, letting people roll in, and then I'll be recording tomorrow's video, which just so happens to be about fire lookouts. Yeah, my workouts are going good. I feel like I'm slowly... There was an 8-week period of training where like I lost a lot of strength because the programming was stupid. But now I'm kind of back on the linear progression and things are moving right back up faster than, last time. And how am I feeling? I'm feeling great. I think I told you guys I started taking well, initially I took because I had some issues with my shoulder, and I took the oral BPC stuff, and that helped, but it took 2 months of using it. I had to take in the morning and at the end of the day, and I had terrible sleep and dreams. But somehow my shoulder did get better. But now I have the injectable BPCs. What's up, Liz? And you do that once in the morning when you wake up, and I'm already, after a week, I'm already feeling pretty good. Hitsubasa with the 5 says, hey Joel, been doing HIIT exercise with a lot of squats and legs are on fire. Send help. Also love the music choice today. Thank you. Nice, yeah. Everybody should be working out, staying active. Make it your lifestyle choice for the rest of time. What's up, Salad? How goes it? Went from 8-pound water jugs to 15-pound dumbbells. I'm feeling good about it. Nice. That's awesome, Elvis. Yeah, every day, just take it slow and focus on form. Placed your volume with temazepam. My feet groovy. I feel it in my feet. Oh, you're working out right now? Hell yeah, dude. Get jacked. Don't forget about the weights. Liz, how could I forget you? Yeah, also, no squats today. No squat was I guess yesterday was, yeah, squat day, along with some like banded deadlift. The banded stuff's been interesting though, just because it keeps climbing high, but it's, you know, still feeling good doing it. Place the volume with horse tranquilizer. Exactly. You don't want to feel a single ounce of human emotion in your life. You must mask all of it with pharmaceutical medication, even if it's for another creature. Been working out recently, which felt good. I can't help but feel like I'm wasting time, although I know I'm not. Wasting time at the gym. Lifted 4 pounds. My go-to workout music? Well, since I'm at like the gym, it's whatever the fuck is on. But if I'm squatting heavy, I like to have some heavy metal stuff going. But other than that, I guess just like anything with energy, whether it's like rap music or electronic music or whatever, you know. Just something to get me going. You started boxing again. Nice. Yeah, boxing is crazy. There's boxing classes at my gym and they look fucking rough, just like moving nonstop. I'm your go-to workout music. Hell yeah, dude. Lift the weight. Lift the weight. Go, 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 go. Fall asleep to hardcore metal. Nice, dude. That's badass. Started doing more cardio and low, and behold, my jeans now fit me. Huge. Nice. There you go. That is progress. Can't listen to anything funny while lifting. Yeah, that would be bad. Make sure you're not handling heavy machinery or... No, babes, you can't leave. No, we're not talking about gym. We're talking about big bags of snacks. Headstrong by Trapped. Headstrong, take you out. Headstrong, take on anyone. Jeff Cavalier says hi. Hello, Jeff. Yeah, I realize at this point, like, I went through, like, just so many stupid phases about, like, diet stuff where I'm like, oh, you gotta fast, or, oh, you should, you know, cut out carbs, or blah, 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 blah. You know, and I realized at the end of the day, it literally is just calories in, calories out, and if you're able to, you know, do that with, like, whole foods and just not, you know, stay active, and also I was hearing some stuff that, like, when it comes to, like, bulking, like, higher calories when you're younger, you can, you know, when you're getting those, like, newbie gains or whatever, can definitely have its effects in, like, growth. But then once you become, like, a seasoned veteran in the gym, doing, like, big bulks of, you know, 500 plus is not very effective, apparently. Like, really just 200 to 300 additional calories a day is pretty much where you're going to see most of your benefit. Otherwise, you're just gaining a lot of fat, cultivating mass, exactly, and taking big dumps. Those are the best. Terry, welcome back for 2 whole years. Says bye-bye, Teletubby. Hello, Fedora. Hell yeah, dude. You should wear that with pride, my lady. Just take Ozempic. No, stay away from Ozempic. It'll make you jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. And you won't even do a flip when you do it. Didn't they add some, like, big old nets to the Golden Gate Bridge? I'm proud of them. What's up, Eve? Some kind of podcast playing at all times with me, if it's possible. I may have a problem. No, I feel ya. I, like, can't stand silence. I mean, I'll do it once in a while just to sort of reflect on shit, but I do find that I always have to have, like, some stupid fucking YouTube video yapping in my ear as I do everything. Would security hit the Baltimore bridges? As long as they don't all collapse. Favorite pro wrestler? Currently? I don't know. I remember back in the day, the Ultimate Warrior was pretty freaking sweet. Try a new flavor of goldfish. It's mixed with gold-based seasoning. They're so good. Oh shit. There was like these Cheez-Its back in the day that was like Tabasco sauce Cheez-Its. And I remember we like called them Spirit Razors because me and my one friend were lost in the woods. But we were just snacking on these like Tabasco flavored Cheez-Its, and it like raised our spirits to like never be upset that we were lost for hours, and we just kept going until we found our way out. I'll eat 3 bags of goldfish and ruin 2 weeks of diet. Yeah, sadly. It's not fair. You really, honestly, I don't know who has... I feel like people who actually stick to their diet have like Navy SEAL level of discipline. Quest brand has protein cheese. Hits. Oh shit, yeah, those are pretty solid. They stopped making them. Yeah, I don't know. They were really popular for a while. The Kratom only diet. Oh god. Exit strategy of Ukraine. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I just want to clarify. I don't know shit about the fog of war or even what's going on over there, but I think us constantly like sending weapons is probably not helping much. And it seems like, I don't know, don't they just want like specific territories anyways that are pro-Russian? Am I ex-military? No, dude. The only reason I would go into the military is so I could join the Special Forces, Navy SEALs, and sell you guys a ball sweat wicking underwear. I mean, what other purpose is there to go into the Navy SEALs other than to set yourself up for a podcasting career? And to OCD clear your house 5 to 7 times in one night. Dude, I saw that. Dude, there was, I don't know, it was like a short, but the guy was like, has there been anything that's stuck with you the most, you know, in your times in the Special Forces? And he was like, not really. He's like, any sort of mental health stuff? He's like, it's not too bad. I mean, I do wake up like 5 to 7 times a night, and I thought like that was bad when he said he like wakes up or like probably having nightmares or something. But then he was like, and then I like clear my house, you know, 5 to 7 times. I'm like, what the fuck? Which means he like wakes up from the hours of presumably like, you know, 10 p.m. until 5 or 6 a.m. every hour on the hour to like sweep through his house looking for fucking bad guys just to verify that it's like clear, and then goes back to bed. So it's just like he just gets like little hour-long naps, if that. Can you imagine if you're like that, if you're that stressed out in the middle of the night to like go make sure that there's no boogeymen in your house with guns? How can you even sleep after that? Did you ever eat and kratom? I tried it one time. My friend gave me some. It turned out he had some issues with it, and he's now off of it, but kratom is really bad. Don't take it. But I took it, and it was so weird. I was just like, I felt like I was like floating. And I felt like a weird type of like numbness. It was like floating but numb, and I didn't really like it. Lost your crochet hook. Ah, fuck. What the fuck is kratom? It's basically like, it hits the same receptors as like opiate receptors, so like you know, those type of narcotics, but it's something you can get at the fucking gas station, which is, to me, is crazy. I don't know if they've changed that or not. And it's actually very, very addictive and habit forming. And people go like through withdrawals and whatnot whenever they get off of it. But it's also a way for people like who are actually on heroin to get off of heroin. like transition off and kind of, you know, stop their withdrawal symptoms, which can be really fucking bad. If you have serious pain, it feels really good. Yeah, I guess, you know, it's just always gonna end up down another road, you know. Fell asleep for 12 hours. Nice, dude. It's a long sleep. Yeah, can I get some of your gas station opium? Right away. I think it was weird though, because like Kratom kind of like marketed itself as this sort of like natural, it's all natural fucking, you know, pain reliever or whatever. But yeah, I guess with everything you don't realize how the negative effects it has until quite a while later. You were on morphine last week, hospital stay. How was that? End up trying mango. Mango? What was that again? Have you checked out Freerin? Yeah, I tried to watch Freerin. We were talking about it last time I was streaming. And it was so weird. I didn't know... I don't know, I kept expecting, like, the plot to, like, start. But it just seemed like the first 2 episodes were... It was almost like they were doing sort of like a catch-up, you know? Like a... Like you were supposed to have a bunch of like preemptive knowledge as to who these characters were, like 10 seasons of it. And this, I don't know, it felt like you were watching almost the end of Dragon Ball GT, but none of the context to like any of the what previously occurred. And then I kept expecting like new plot points to pop up. But you know how like, yeah, so basically what I was saying is like every scene felt like one of those like memory scenes or like a dream sequence where it shows the past or whatever, so it like makes it not as significant or makes it feel like you shouldn't really be paying attention too hard because it's just like giving you some context to get back to the exciting parts. And it was, I don't know, there was just something about it it was really boring, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna care about any of these characters by the end. Did I finish Baby Reindeer? I did, yeah. That show honestly sucks. I would say that show kind of sucks. I watched it initially, I was like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, why is he just like allowing all this stupid shit to occur to him? And then it kind of digs into his like backstory a little bit. And then you kind of relate with him. You're like, oh shit, okay, he went through that, you know. But then it just like picks right back up, and I just like lose all, you know, empathy for him. Just like, fucking get your shit together, idiot. The fuck. Never played Sly Cooper. I never got to back in the day. I don't think I had a PS2 really. Morphine was magic. I was screaming in pain and did the job. That's cool. Freeman feels like it's supposed to be more of a relaxing slice of life show rather than an adventure type. That makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Freerin to me, and it's not to put anybody down that enjoyed it, but it reminded me, like, if you really like Animal Crossing, then it's even less exciting than Animal Crossing. Mango, a Dominican dish, is made with the boiled green plantains and mashed with butter. There's fried eggs, fried salami, red onions, and fried laganisa, a type of meat. So, damn, that does sound really fucking good. Holy shit. I don't even know where you get that around here. Oh yeah, let's go, baby. How you doing? I have a question. Do you fire the person who chose the story last time? Joke, I missed you, Joel, here and there, but working out as promised. Thank you. Nice. Good to hear that, Sora. I'm glad you're getting into it. Just imagine where you'll be a year from now if you stay consistent. That's all that matters. And try to eat, you know, healthy, whole foods, protein, all that good stuff. All right. Stay away from processed crap, guys. Let's get reading. Let's get to reading. We got over We got a lot. We got a lot here. I was taking a glance at these. This might be a much longer stream than normal, so... Axeman, what's up, dude? Good to see ya. A type of meat, yeah, it's just mystery meat. Your brother and his friends LARP as Japanese people. That's cool. How healthy is eating that booty? It's 0 calories, but it does come with a little bit of poop. Alright, let's quick this off, shall we? We got fire lookout stories tonight. We will protect the forest and all of its creatures. Fasty, it's not nice to be mean to people online. They will find you. Alright. Yeah. Just a little context. I'm female, in my 30s, but I was in my late 20s when this story happened. I figured I'd better add that here so you know more about who's writing in. So way back in 2014, a full 10 years ago, I first saw a photo that looked a lot like this one. For those of you that can see it, the picture displays a smiling young woman sat on a bed, but then behind her is one of the most spectacular views of rolling pine-dotted mountains that you'll ever likely see. I remember wondering if what I was seeing was the woman's home, and if it was, what I'd have to do in order to live in that kind of coniferous... I did not expect the word coniferous. What is the picture? Oh, that's cool looking. Is it coniferous? Googa baga baga, wagga wagga, wooga wooga. Coniferous. Coniferous, okay. Did I proofread this time? I did not, no. Let's hope for the best. But the person that picked out that last story did get spanked very hard. You can take solace in that. Can you read the second paragraph? Yeah, start now. Go, 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 go. I remember wondering if what I was seeing was the woman's home, and if it was, what I'd have to do in order to live in that kind of coniferous mountain paradise. I did some research and then discovered that the woman was indeed living up there in the mountains, but not on a permanent basis. The place that she was staying was a fire lookout tower, and not only did she get to stay up there for months at a time, but she was actually being paid for the privilege. And from that moment on, I was obsessed. I thought living the life of a fire lookout for a summer would be the adventure of a lifetime. I also thought that it would be a relatively easy thing to get into. But on both counts, I was very wrong. I thought I'd be able to just sign up as a fire lookout and then be in the field in a matter of months. But for each vacancy that gets posted, which is around 40 to 50 a year, the Forest Service gets literally tens of thousands of applicants. You also have to make your application months in advance in order to make the deadline, purely because the sheer volume of applications the Forest Service has to work through. That first year I applied, back in 2014, I was way underqualified and was rejected within days. I then went away, did some volunteer work, and since that on... Ever play the game Firewatch? I saw it. My one roommate was playing it, but I didn't get to see much of it. It looked neat, though. Oh yeah, Sora, that was a compilation video of remastered audio and stuff. It's like a promo for the podcast, which does exist, and you guys should check it out if you like sweet audio. Evangelion update. That show I didn't really get to progress through as much. I still feel like I'm on like episode 5 or 6 or something. I think they just got to see the girl, Shinji got to see the girl fight. Oh yeah, they were doing the sniper. Yeah, I think I haven't moved since then. I was watching the other stuff. For over 2 weeks now, I'm on summer break. Let's go, dude. Fuck school. I then went away, did some volunteer work since that's all I could get fresh out of high school, and build up my resume until it was somewhat respectable. Then, come 2015, I applied again, but after a few weeks of hoping and praying, I got the news that I'd been rejected again. It sucked twice as hard as the first rejection because I'd actually put a ton of work into making myself worthy of hiring. But apparently, after a year of on and off again volunteer work in community gardens, and even a brief stint at the National Arboretum. I do know that word. I'm topologizing a dong for you. Hell yeah, dude. Topolize it. Hardcore. Guys, we're starting an animation channel. So far we got Axeman cartoons on animation, we got Robin, and the idea is to give the animators freedom to create horror shorts, 5, 10, 15 minute long horror shorts, whatever it ends up being. But they get to decide the story and the direction with things. As long as I get to do the voice work for whether it needs expositional, narration or, voiceovers and whatnot. Haven't made the channel officially yet, but we are in the works on some projects. We potentially might have the guy that helped me do the music video for the 1 million subscribers. Prickly Cats, was that you on Twitter? That's funny. 1 million subscriber animation, Dacon animation. He might join in, but we haven't solidified that quite yet. But the idea is that I don't know, really good animations is just something that sticks with you for a long time. You see ones that I just want them to be those ones that make you think, kind of like you're watching Black Mirror or like Love, Death, and Robots kind of thing. So it's like a Yami Shibai, short horror stories lasting 3 to 5 minutes. Essentially, yeah, or longer. But it's just going to be like anthology type stuff, but, obviously the animations will be their own separate little posts on the YouTube channel when it comes out. I'm thinking the channel is going to be called... Well, I don't want to say it so no one steals it and makes another one. So, pretty sure Robin Mikalsen could single-handedly carry the entire channel himself. No, I mean, I really enjoy everyone's different styles. You know what I mean? And everybody's going to get better as they go along. And yeah, it's going to be sweet. And I've wanted to do it for a while, but I think we've got. So if anybody knows any other animators that are looking for work and you feel like are, talented, yeah, have them hit me up or whatnot. Give the name. No. But apparently, after a year of on and off again work in community gardens and even a brief stint at the National Arboretum, I was apparently still one of the least qualified candidates. It took 2 more years of applying, but when I applied for the 2018 season, just before the 2017 holidays, I was so jaded that I even made alternative plans for my summer, also that the fire lookout rejection would be like water off a duck's back in my mind. But then, and I find this really ironic, The only time I actually planned not to be accepted was the year that I finally was. And the reason I'm writing all of this is because I want to give you an idea of just how long I'd been waiting to be accepted as a fire lookout. It was like a dream come true, and I hadn't just waited for it, I'd worked hard for it too. I was also like a completely different person to the one that had first applied back in 2014. I was older, wiser, more experienced, and much more capable of looking after myself. But I still wanted the same thing. I firmly believed with all of my heart that 3 summer months living out in the wilderness would be emotionally and spiritually fulfilling in ways I could barely even calculate. And it would have been, if not for... If you would run for public office, you'd guaranteed vote. Dude, that's the thing about politics. It's like you can bitch about it all day, which is what I do, and, really most of the time provide no alternative solutions. But, like, when it comes to actually getting in there and being in the cutthroat place where it's plata o plomo, silver or lead, at least in America, and if you don't take the bribe, they blackmail you, but they blackmail you by making you look really bad, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the time people wonder why, like, their, congressperson doesn't vote in their favor or whatever, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of, like, money movers and power people in positions, and I'm just speculating, but that just, they're like, maybe we, grease up your palm a little bit, or maybe we make you look a little silly. But yeah, so I'd be almost like terrified to ever participate in something like that, because then you're probably essentially like imprisoned to it forever, and then eventually just to like forget the fact that you could potentially be blackmailed by some intel agency. You just get used to taking the bribe and enjoying your perks. And Joe Biden's watching the stream. He's just sitting there like drooling over his ice cream bowl, shitting his pants. Davis Wall with a 10. Love me some Let's Read. Thank you, Davis. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is Donald Trump's trial. Get the lobby out of Washington. It would be nice. I mean, how do you do that? I have no idea. That's what I find so interesting about, like, most people's political perspectives, is that, like, all the stuff that you see people, like, bitching about online, it's just what you're permitted to see. You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, I associate with this side because of XYZ identity thing, so therefore this is the thing I should be real rah-rah about. And, there's a million other things going on that you probably should concern yourself with, probably most likely taking care of yourself and your family, first off. But aside from that, like, I always find it weird that, like, nobody ever talks about I talked about it on the channel a little bit, but nobody ever talks about the Uyghurs in China. That's just like a completely glossed over subject. I don't know. Child soldiers in Africa? You know what I mean? Like, there's just, like, the things that we get really worked up about is just sort of, it's like, it becomes like a tunnel vision of what we are permitted to see. I don't know if that's considered the Overton window, but our limitation on our perspectives is, and even if that's the thing, is like you're permitted to see this, and you can have your emotional response to it and your thoughts on it, but even that, it usually doesn't generate any sort of change or anything, which might be demoralizing, but maybe eventually it makes you think, like, well, to make change, I have to, I don't know, think creatively, I suppose. Zeitgeist, yeah. The president, yeah. Comes out and gives the State of the Union and everybody falls asleep. Why did the world decide not to care? I assume people don't care because, like, there's a lot of money to be made in China, And with China, if you want to operate with them, you have to honor the CCP, because it's like a fucking weird semi-dictatorship over there. It's like some weird mix of, like, communism, but also, like, limited capitalism, which is probably what they want to, integrate externally as well. But yeah, if you want to, make some money, you can't talk about shit. In the same way that, like, I forget who it was, the guy who won the Hearthstone tournament, or maybe it was HOTS or something like that. But he said, free Hong Kong. And then Blizzard took away, like, they did all these extreme things, like banned him and then took away his medal and all of this stuff, really just because they wanted to maintain their business relationship with China. But I don't think they do anymore, because I think China banned them or whatever. But fuck them, dude. Fuck China. China sucks. Sonia, welcome back for 20 months. Thank you so much. Resist the empire and see what happens. It's true, man. Yeah, you conform or, disconnect and just kind of agree with the person screaming in your ear or whatever. But yeah, most of the time all you can really do is just keep your head down and make your money, because the only real freedom that you have in life is the choices you make and the money that you make as well. So try to make as much as you can. And it would have been if not for one person. When the email informing me of my assigned lookout arrived, my parents and I joked that it was very aptly named. I'd waited 4 years for my prized placement, so when I found out that I was being sent to Gold Mountain over in Washington State, we all thought that was just precious. The lookout on Gold Mountain also happened to be the tallest live-in tower in the whole state, so you can imagine why I felt both extremely excited and supremely blessed. The fire lookout postings on Gold Mountain ran for what's called a season, which is roughly 3 months. You arrive in late June, stay all the way through August and September, then depart in early October once regular rains return. I caught a red-eye from Portland to Spokane. Was it Spokane? Spokane. 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 Yeah, when does TikTok get banned, and is anybody purchasing it? I'll buy it. I got if we donate enough, we can buy it. Butter sock talk. What story are we on out of how many? I think there's 3. This is the first one. Yeah, we should start the bidding for TikTok. Whispered Diaries, he does good true scary stories. That sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. I caught a red-eye from Portland to Spokane. Portland, that sounded weird. I caught a red-eye from Portland to Spokane, landing in the early morning, and then drove 170 miles out to Gold Mountain for my 14-week. And drove 170 miles out to Gold Mountain with my 14-week truck rental. I caught a red-eye from Portland to Spokane. Spokane. Fuck me. How do I forget that already? Spokane. Alright. I caught a red-eye from Portland to Spokane, landed in the early morning, and then drove 170 miles out to Gold Mountain with my 14-week truck rental. I thought it'd be a hell of a task to find the place, but not only was it surprisingly easy to locate, it had its very own access road in Gold Mountain Lookout Drive. I arrived mid-morning, met with one of the Colville Forest Rangers, and then, after going over a few final details, he handed me the keys. Before he left, and with this big, warm smile on his face, he asked me if I was having any second thoughts. He said he always gave volunteer lookouts one last chance to back out before they committed themselves to a season. He was smiling because, I think that he could see how excited and eager I was, and he knew that there was no way in hell that I was about to back out now that I was finally living my dream. He laughed when I told him as much, and after handing over the keys, he got into his truck and drove off. And I was elated, so much so that I actually danced a little jig as I went to retrieve my stuff. The only two downsides would be, 1, having to use a nearby creek to wash myself, and 2, having to walk all the way down to the bottom of the tower to use the chemical toilet. I also wouldn't be completely isolated, which was kind of a pro and a con at the same time. A ranger would stop by every few weeks to replace the chemical bin on the porta potty that I had, as well as to generally check in on me and make sure that I hadn't gone AWOL. But this would also give me a brief window to head over to the Inchelium. What the flick? Inchelium. Hey, Lynn, thank you for the gifter to Jay Coleman. Is that a place? Also, for some reason, chat BBC changed their stupid fucking... Like, there's... How do you switch dark mode? It, like, doesn't let you switch to dark mode. Maybe it's in the settings. I swear I looked. Theme, system. Okay, I'm dumb. Sorry, there's dark. I swear to God, they changed it. And Lynn, thank you for another gifter. To Fry. Inchelium is a place. Okay, how do you pronounce it? Inchelium is pronounced Inchelium. Okay. But this would also give me a brief window to head over... Oh my God. But this would also give me a brief window to head over to the Inchelium community store to pick up additional groceries and supplies. Aside from that, I was very isolated from the rest of the world, with the nearest patch of civilization being almost 15 miles away to the southwest. That's actually exactly what I've been hoping for. But as the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. So as I mentioned earlier, I had to walk down to a nearby creek if I wanted to get washed properly and all that. And at first, I was quite apprehensive about the prospect of getting half naked in the middle of the woods, and the first few times, I walked down in a bathing suit under my towel. But then, when I actually saw the deeper part of the creek, all my fears were quite literally washed away. Although the water only came up to my shins, the stones and sand on the bottom of the creek were smooth enough to walk on in my bare feet, and the water moved fast enough to ensure that I wouldn't be washing in any dirty or stagnant water. I'd walk down covered in a towel, flip-flops on my feet, carrying whatever underwear I wanted to wash while I was there. Three times to two, because I only make two videos a week now, Monday and Thursday. Yeah, to me, everything is dark mode in my sick and twisted mind. I'd walk down, covered in a towel, flip-flops on my feet, carrying whatever underwear I wanted to wash while I was there. One hand would be securely holding the towel while the other would be holding my little bag of toiletries, as well as the most important item of all, my bright orange can of bear mace. This is another point I feel like I should address while I'm on this topic. While I'm aware that many volunteer fire lookouts prefer to have a firearm with them while on lookout, I personally chose not to have one with me. I know that might sound crazy to some people, what with there being bears and cougars roaming the woods out there, but I honestly thought that between the bear mace and the taser that I kept up in the tower, I'd be able to defend myself against just about anything. And I was right too, so I guess I was vindicated on that point, but it was very frightening to have put that to the test. Now anyway, I'm 3 weeks into a 13-week stay, but I'm already getting very comfortable living the life of a fire lookout. Then one day, I'm walking down the spiral track that leads from... Then one day, I'm walking down the spiral track that leads down from the lookout tower whistling. Then one day, I'm walking down the spiral track that leads down from the lookout tower, whistling a little tune and looking forward to getting clean again. But then as I walk into the woods and get about 100 meters from the deeper waters and little waterfalls I used to wash, God fucking damn it. But then as I walk into the woods and get about 100 meters from the deeper waters and little waterfalls I used to wash, I suddenly see someone crouching on the opposite side of the creek. I immediately slowed my walking speed, contemplating whether I should just head back to the tower before returning later. Then, once I got a better look at the guy, I decided he looked harmless. He was dressed like a typical hiker, but then despite having the body of a defensive He was dressed like a typical hiker, but then despite having the body of a defensive lineman, the guy could have been the twin brother of the kid who played McLovin in that Superbad movie. He had that same short, dark haircut with the uneven fringe and the same dark brown eyes ringed by black-rimmed glasses. The only distinguishable difference was this guy was yoked. I was aware that the odd hiker passed through the area, so after getting a read on him, I decided on a course of action. I didn't want to walk all the way back to the tower without at least washing my face and hands, so I decided to keep the social awkwardness to a minimum, say hi as I approached the creek, and just hope the guy was relatively normal. If not, well, god damn it. Effin' Dawn, welcome back for 2 months. What's up, Joel? How's it hanging? Good. And Babylon Rose, welcome back for 13 months. Says, my grandfather Harvey was a forest warden in the 50s through 70s. He took me up to a tower once. I was about 8. I love that man. Love this fam, too. Thanks, Rose. Appreciate you, friend. Yeah, there's fire lookout tower around here, but the ladder to it is knocked out, at least from the entranceway. So you kind of have to climb up some metal before you can continue to go up the steps and stuff. But once you get up there, it's fucking crazy, just like how far you can actually see. It just goes for miles and miles. The ends of the earth. If not, well, I had my bear mace. As I got to the edge of the creek, my presence obviously startled him a little because he went from crouched to standing and kind of awkwardly avoiding my gaze. I remember saying, "Hey there, nice day for a hike," before I set down my stuff and took a few steps into the water. He politely returned my greeting, but as he did, I noticed that he was looking at me as if I'd grown an extra head or something. I understand why he was so confused. I mean, one minute he's sitting there enjoying a quiet moment of respite next to the creek, and then the next, some half-naked lady is strolling through the trees and saying hi like it's the most normal thing in the world. I could understand why it piqued his curiosity, so, at first, I chose to indulge it as best I could. The guy started asking me what I was doing, and while trying not to sound too sarcastic as I washed my hands and face, I told him I was, well, washing my hands and face. I was being a little pedantic, I guess, and I also supposed that he had every right to ask me some follow-up questions, so I entertained those too. I told him that I was acting as a fire lookout at a tower not too far from the creek, and that I was spending all summer there, and that the creek was my only means of getting washed. He looked impressed at first, and then asked if I was staying there all on my own. Right away, I knew it wasn't a great idea to tell any stranger that I'd be alone someplace for an extended amount of time. But like I said, the guy seemed mostly harmless, and I wasn't completely cut off from the outside world. I told him that, yes, I was all alone, but I had the means to protect myself and a very reliable radio with a very clear signal that would instantly summon rangers if I was in trouble or if there was a fire. And this obviously answered his question, but engaging his reaction, I saw that it was almost like he didn't believe me. He asked me if I had a gun. I said no. He asked me if my boyfriend was with me. Oh yeah, Mike Arrington. I was going to say I recognize your profile picture there. Yeah, this is the man. This is the man all those girls, when they were asked if they would rather run into a man or a bear in the woods. This is the man that they all said that they wanted to kiss and hug. Mike Tyson. He asked me if my boyfriend was with me, which was kind of a presumptive question, but one I also answered with a no. He then asked me if I ever felt scared, being up in that watchtower at night all alone. And that question is the only one to which I returned a dishonest response when I told him no, I didn't get scared at night, when the truth was, it was almost impossible not to. The nights were just about the only times I wondered if I hadn't been a little too hasty in committing to an entire season. You hear some wild noises out there at night, and outside your window, there's nothing but a sea of darkness below the gigantic ceiling of stars. And that's on a good night. On a bad night, when the winds are up, it howls around the tower like a banshee, and then makes the whole thing creak so loud you can't tell if it's the wind or someone slowly creeping up the stairs towards you through the darkness. I don't scare all that easy. Even for me, nighttimes up in the lookout tower were a test of nerves. But something about the guy's question told me admitting any kind of fear was not in my best interest. I recall how he just kind of stood there for a moment, with this very incredulous look on his face, probably believing me by the point. Love me long time, thank you. When she says that she's going to love you long time, and she actually marries you and live happily ever after. I recall how he just stood in the moment. Oh, okay. I recall how he just kind of stood there for a moment, with this incredulous look on his face, probably believing me by that point, but just thinking I was crazy. I'd just about finished washing up by then, so I waded out of the creek, picked up my stuff, and then started back towards the lookout tower. But no sooner had I turned my back, the four-eyed hiker yelled after for me. He yelled something like, "It's not safe for you to be all alone out here." And I felt like yelling back, "Not with you out here, it isn't," but I thought it was probably best not to antagonize him. Instead, I simply reminded the first baseman. I'll just call him Big McLovin. First baseman, what the fuck? Ashley Brown, thank you for the 8 months. Says, Joel, your voice soothes me to sleep every night. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. Instead, I simply reminded Big McLovin that I had my mace, a taser, and that a few words into my radio and heavily armed rangers would come to my aid. I guess the heavily armed part wasn't strictly true, but the rangers were packing a hell of a lot more firepower than I had, and besides, I just wanted to protect this impression of absolute safety in order to prevent McLovin from continually offering me his company. But in that effort, I failed completely miserably. After I made the comment about heavily armed rangers, I turned and started to walk off again, but that's when McLovin yelled after me and asked if I wanted some company. I absolutely did not want any company, and even if the guy was as handsome as Bradley Cooper, I'm more of a Brandy Carlisle. Is it Carlisle? Brandy.
Mischievous dog.
Brandy Carlisle? Nicole Kitely, welcome back for 25 months. Says, hey homies, Joel, please give Pradeep some good snoot boops for me. I shall. Where even is he? Oh, he's behind me here. I'm fearful to disturb him, otherwise he'll be like, oh, you better finish what you started and keep petting me. I love Brandy Carlisle. Yeah, how do you say your name? Oh, Carlisle. Okay, sweet. Keith. Give him a Keith. I absolutely did not want any company, and even if the guy was as handsome as Bradley Cooper, I'm more of a Brandy Carlisle kind of girl, wink wink nudge nudge. And if some of you are asking yourselves, why not just tell him that you're a lesbian so he'll leave you alone? There's a depressing truth that you probably need to hear. As many of my fellow sapphics... Sapphics? Is that like an... Is that a slur? What is this? Sapphic. After Sappho, an Aeolic verse from four... What is it? Here's what the word means, how it relates to WLW. Oh, it just means lesbian. Alright, cool. That's all we need to know. Looking it up. Man, it's taking me to porn sites. I don't get it. As many of my fellow sapphics might tell you, there's a certain breed of heterosexual man that isn't just undeterred by such information, they're nauseatingly emboldened by it. Sometimes I'd rather encounter an outright homophobe than someone who wants to make their token lesbian friend, or even worse, the guy who thinks he'll be the one to fix me. And so, with that in mind, I didn't tell Protein Shake McLovin any of the sort. Instead, I answered his question with a question, and asked him his name. My response threw him off a little bit, but after a momentary pause, he told me his name was Trent. I told Trent my own in return, which is Abby, and then tried to make it abundantly clear that I was perfectly safe and that I didn't need any company. And then after wishing him farewell, I walked back to the lookout. As far as I know, Trent watched me walk off until I was out of sight, by which point I was heavily regretting having told him where I was staying. The most tiresome thing was how Trent seemed to want to protect me out of some undated sense of chivalry. I'd almost rather that he was an out-and-out perv so I could just have an excuse to bear mace him. I walked off hoping that I wouldn't run into him again, but then also having this comforting feeling that I wouldn't. He didn't seem like the type to come back and do anything that constituted harassment. And I think maybe 3 weeks went by, so long that I'd actually forgotten about my little encounter with Trent. And then one day, I walked down the hill to take a creek shower, and when I got to the water, there he was. Trent was sitting on a flattish rock just a few feet from the water's edge, and when he saw me coming, he started to smile. I was in the same getup as the first time I ran into him, so just a towel, but with my bathing suit underneath, my flip-flops, and then my bag and bear mace in the same grip. I kinda just wanted to wave the bear mace in his direction as if to say, leave me alone, but again, I thought it was better not to antagonize him. I greeted him again, but purely out of politeness. I didn't want to talk. He was ruining my washing time, and since I knew that he was only there to try and engineer a second encounter with yours truly, I really didn't appreciate his presence. Trent returned my greeting and then attempted to make small talk with me in a way that seemed a little over-familiar. I did my best to remain polite, told him that I was doing fine and that no, I hadn't spotted any fires yet. We kept going back and forth like that as I washed myself as best I could, and then eventually, the subject of me requiring his company came up again. It started with Trent bringing up how dangerous it was for someone to be living out in the woods all alone, and how he thought that I was very brave for volunteering myself for it. I reminded him that it wasn't all that dangerous if you kept yourself out of harm's way, but that just allowed him to segue into talking about how I'd be safer with someone there to watch my back. As I once again explained why I didn't need his protection, I could see Trent growing more and more frustrated, and the weirdest thing was, I don't think it was entirely down to not getting his way. He seemed genuinely unable to comprehend where I was coming from. Then, when I got to the part about me feeling safer out there on Gold Mountain than I did in a major city, he just kind of snapped. He started off with some impassioned speech about how I was being naive and idealistic, and how out in the wilderness, those attributes could get you killed. For the second time, I told him that I appreciated his concern, but that it was entirely unwarranted. Then, when he couldn't seem to shut himself up, I did a little snapping of my own. I told Trent that, in all honesty, the only person making me feel unsafe or uncomfortable was him. I'd been out there for weeks, and he was the only person who had made any creepy, unwanted advances on me. So if he truly wanted to... New York City. And he just gets stabbed in the head. Ah, the big city. And somebody just like drives by, decapitates you. Or like a bear mauls you for some reason. Clementine, what up? So, if he truly wanted me to feel safer, he should just leave me the hell alone. It felt great to say that in the moment, but my attention had been to rain on his parade, not pour gasoline on a bonfire. He ceased the kind, but... What the fuck? The kind. He ceased the kind but patronizing approach and went straight to the insults. He asked me if I was stupid, or if this was just my first time camping and I didn't know any better. Because anyone with experience knew that the woods have 1,000 different ways to kill you, and that someone as ignorant as me wouldn't last another week without someone like him around to protect them. That right there, that's what made me so angry. It wasn't him assuming that I couldn't defend myself. It was him calling me stupid or naive or idealistic. It was the sheer manipulative arrogance of trying to scare me into accepting his company. I waded out of the creek in a rage, picked up my stuff, and then held up the big orange can of bear mace that I had with me. I told him his gross, manipulative ass could just F himself, and that if I saw him down by the creek again, I'd report him to the ranger teams for harassment. I also made it clear that the rangers did indeed have the power to arrest him, and that it wouldn't just be some smoky bear-looking dude asking him politely to move on. That was also the best of all possible outcomes for him too, because if he stepped within 10 feet of me, then I'd spray him with so much bear mace that he'd go blind. And, at that, I turned around and started walking back up to the lookout tower just as I'd done a few weeks before. Trent started yelling after me, and I'd never ever forget about how he said that it was... What? Trent started yelling, and I'll never ever forget how he said that it was, and I quote, oh. But. Do my reading tomorrow? No. Alright. Trent started yelling after me, and I'll never ever forget how he said that it was, and I quote, just like a woman to spit in the face of someone trying to help her. Even though what Trent yelled after me was truly disgusting, I'm not going to start throwing around arbitrary labels like incel or misogynist. But what I But what I will say is that I definitely think that there was something kind of Aspergy about Trent. Aspergy. Aspergy. Asperger-y. Oh, Asperger-y. Ass-eating burger. He loved Aspergers. But what I will say is that I definitely think that there was something kind of Asperger-y about Trent. And I say that because of the way that he got all mad when he couldn't seem to understand my thinking. I don't think Trent was acting the way that he was to deliberately frighten or even troll me. I don't think he was operating on that level of psychopathy. Instead, I think his ability to understand my attitude morphed into frustration and then legitimate contempt for me. Of all the hikers I had to run into during my 3-month stay on Gold Mountain, I found it almost comical that I had to run into that one. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't scared, you know? I mean, not only had I attempted to escape the creeps of the big city, only for them to basically follow me, but Trent had already proven that he was willing to hike all the way out there to do nothing but harass me. That time, after getting back to the tower, I figured it was just a matter of time before he showed up again. But what I didn't figure was just how quickly that third encounter would come, or just how terrifying it would be. It was about a week after that second encounter, and the prospect of Trent returning was still very much on my mind, when I bedded down for the night with my bear mace and taser close at hand. I remember listening to the crickets chirping as I drifted off to sleep, a sound that I still have a lot of love for, but then the next thing I know, a very different kind of noise had me waking with a startle. You know when the sound of something wakes you up, but you don't actually hear what that thing is? I guess some people actually hear their phone's ringtones in their dreams or hear people calling them to wake up, but in this instance, I just remember jerking awake after hearing something, but not knowing exactly what I'd heard. I waited a second or two, wondering if it had been a coyote howling nearby that had woken me up, and if I was about to hear some follow-up screech when I heard what could arguably have been the worst sound possible in that moment. And that sound was that of a boot pressing onto one of the steel steps below me. Someone was climbing the tower stairs. I remember kicking off my sleeping bag in my underwear, and I then shoved my feet into my untied boots and kind of wiggled my ankles until my feet slid into them while grabbing the mace and taser from the small side table nearby. After that, I froze again, in complete darkness, and listened for the sound of boot soles on steel steps. It took a moment, but suddenly I heard it again. The distinct sound of a boot sole hitting a steel step. Someone was trying to tread softly enough to muffle the sound, but they were doing a really bad job of it. I called out just a single, "Hello?" before I put the taser in favor of my flashlight. In front of? In favor. Front of? Oh. It'd be so funny if, like, PewDiePie went, like, insane one day and just, did, like, a POV, like, picture down by his knees of his, I don't know, like, his dong. Like, he's just naked, like, and the camera's pointed up at him, and he's just giving the middle finger to the camera with his, like, big old dong hanging down, and he's like, "Fuck y'all," and then says, like, a really bad word at the end. And then it's just, you know, nothing you can do. That's what he posted online, and that's it. You gotta deal with it. I can't believe she didn't bring a gun. I would have brought, like, dynamite. I would have set traps for this guy. Are we rioting? We're always rioting. We're always throwing Molotov cocktails. Say hi to Isabel. What up, Isabel? DoorDash. Nice, dude. Just be sure to get some chicken. I called out, just a single, hello? Before I put down the taser in front of my flashlight. And then now that one, fucking Christ. Fucking Christ. Before I put down the taser in favor of my flashlight, I then shouted something like, I know someone's out there. I got a gun up here and I'm about to call the Rangers. The part about the gun was obviously a lie, but it just popped in my head in the heat of the moment, I guess. A moment of silence followed. I think in my gut I kind of knew that it was him, but that didn't make it any easier to hear his voice. Trent's words broke the silence in a way that actually made me shudder, and it wasn't just realizing that it was him either. It was what he said. You're not safe out here, Abby. You're not safe out here, Abby, he said, in this flat, scolding tone. I screamed back at him that if he even tried to enter the tower, I'd push him off and just leave him there until the Rangers showed up. Trent didn't say anything in response, not at first anyway. I just heard him take a few more steps up the stairs, getting closer and closer toward me. I couldn't stand the silence, so I screamed some more, telling him that he had one more chance to leave me alone before he got himself maced. Then suddenly, there he was, this dark figure moving on the other side of the glass. I turned on my flashlight, lighting him up, blinding him. It twisted up his face in a way that made him look like some type of monster. I screamed a little more, told him to not even think about opening the door. He ignored me. Then what he said next turned my blood, quite literally, to ice. Someone's got to teach you, Abby. Just typing the word teach, even all these years later, makes me so angry I feel my cheeks burning. But back then, it scared the crap out of me. In the moment, teach didn't mean educate. Not really. Teach meant assault. Teach meant violate. And worse, teach might mean torture and kill. But Trent wasn't going to get to do any of those things to me because of all the things Trent was, he was clearly not a person of practical intelligence. Because in opening up the cabin door while failing to adequately shield his eyes, Trent gave me the perfect opening to absolutely drench his fate. Absolutely. Hey, Twisted Technician, thank you for the 5. Says, hey, Joel, hope all is well. Came through, been a busy and hectic time, but hope everyone's doing well too. Thank you, man. Good to see you. It's been a while. Yeah, 4 pounds of strawberries. What do I make? Maybe you could make a strawberry cream cheese. One thing I used to make, I forget exactly what went into it. It was like cream cheese and sour cream, but it was like grapes and different kinds of grapes. And then on top of that, but it was like a flavored type of cream cheese or something. And then on top of that was like a bunch of almonds and nuts. And it was like sort of a thing that you would take to like a potluck or whatever and, scoop it up. And there was fruit on the inside along with the cream cheese and whatever with the cinnamon / like nut mixture. And it was really good as long as nobody's like allergic to that shit. Don't let the dogs eat it. Yeah, I'm surprised the door wasn't locked. Like, what the fuck? Nut mixture, yeah. You gotta put a few loads into it. Because in opening up the cabin door while failing to adequately shield his eyes, Trent gave me the perfect opening to absolutely drench his face with a noxious-smelling bear mace. And I really let him have... God damn it. And I really let him have it. The moment I got a clear shot, I sent a prolonged spray of this highly caustic liquid directly into his face, and his reaction was instantaneous. He winced. He rubbed his eyes, but Trent did not retreat from the cabin. Instead, he responded by blindly lunging forward while grasping wildly for me. It was terrifying, but also shockingly easy to simply step aside and just dodge that attempt. However, the cabin was also extremely small, meaning that he was just a second or two away from changing direction and potentially pinning me in a... Oh my god. Thankfully... Balls. However, the cabin was also extremely small, meaning he was just a second or two away from changing direction and potentially pinning me into a corner. Thankfully, my taser was literally right there beside me, and so the next time Trent lunged wildly in the direction I thought I... Thankfully, my taser was literally right there beside me, and so the next time Trent Thankfully, my taser was literally right there beside me, and so the next time Trent lunged wildly in the direction he thought I was, I stepped out of the way again, and then began dry stunning him before he had a chance to find his feet. Dry stunning? Dude, I hate the fact that I have to, look this... Dry stun. Oh. I don't think she had time to call for help. Tater him. Cover him in taters. Tater salad. Thankfully, my taser was literally right there beside me, and so the next time Trent lunged wildly in the direction he thought I was, I stepped out of the way again, then began dry stunning him before he had a chance to find his feet again. It might sound a little sadistic of me, but hearing Trent scream might be the single most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The fight completely left him. And he just simply lay there panting between the shocks. I'd tell him to get out. What? Oh. I would scream for him to get out, and when he failed to move, I'd shock him again and listen as his screams reverberated around the cabin. I also think that he might have actually been drunk when he showed up that night. I mean, mace me and tase me, and I think I might slur my words too, but I have a very strong suspicion that alcohol had something to do with Trent's vile decision making that... God fuck, dude. I don't know why it's just not flowing right now. I was fine, and now I feel like there's random words that I'm not ready for. Do I like pretzels? Oh, you're asking them. Oh, wait. I mean, I missed one. Yeah, I missed one post on Patreon. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how I forgot. I just did. But the bonus shit is not, it's already been on Patreon in the past, so it wouldn't make any sense to post it again. What's up, Edge Runner? Edger. I mean, mace me and tase me, and I think I might slur my words too. But I have a very strong suspicion that alcohol had something to do with Trent's vile decision-making that night. Either way, He did not fare well once he entered the cabin, and after dry stunning him a few more times with the Either way, he did not fare well once he entered the cabin, and after dry stunning him a few more times with the taser, he began dragging himself towards the door and the staircase outside. The whole time I'm screaming at Trent to get the hell out, and there's like a residual bear mace in the cabin, so I'm kind of reacting to it by that time too. I didn't give him any more of the bear mace until he was about halfway down the stairs, but on the way out, I was dry stunning him, and actually kind of hoping that he'd just collapse and fall right down the mall. Why does that sound weird? I didn't give him any more of the bear mace until we were about halfway down the stairs, but on the way out I was dry stunning him, and actually kind of hoping that he'd just collapse and fall down the mall. But I guess the charge wasn't strong enough to make him seize up and fall over, because all he did was kind of tense up and scream every time I shoved it into his back or side. Then, as I said, once he was about halfway down, I gave him another blast of bear mace, and then ran back up to the cabin to call in assistance from the Rangers. Rangers may take shifts to ensure continuous monitoring of radios, so knowing the right frequencies, it was easy to report what had just happened with Trent's visit. And by the time they showed up, he was gone. But early the next morning, he was picked up by the cops, questioned, and then simply released without charges. As far as the cops were concerned, the bottom line was that what happened that night was all just a bunch of he said, she said. They couldn't prove Trent had any ill intentions, and all they could prove was that I blasted him with bear mace, and the one thing that kept the cops on my side was how cagey Trent had acted when asked why he was out in the woods so late at night, exploring the tower. Before he was released, Trent was warned to stay well away from Gold Mountain and to stay away from the Colville National Forest altogether if he could avoid it. But to be perfectly honest, that didn't do a single effing thing for my peace of mind. In fact, I spent the last few weeks of my stay expecting Trent to show up again to settle the score, and I never felt safe down by that creek again. I kept looking over my shoulder almost everywhere I went, and if even so much as a mouse farted outside the lookout tower, you can bet your ass that I was waking up with my heart racing before reaching for that bear mace. Trent, if that even was your real name, Trent, if that even was his real name. Oh, okay. Yeah, you think at that point, if she's finishing out her thing, why not get an actual gun from the fucking... Well, I guess, I don't know, if she doesn't have the... I mean, why wouldn't they just leave her a rifle or some shit? I don't know. That's fucking stupid. Just so against guns that you don't want to use it to protect yourself. Trent, if that even was his real name... Trent, if that even was his real name, had managed to taint the adventure of a lifetime to the point that I couldn't actually enjoy it anymore. And when the time came to leave, I cried. And those tears weren't because I was going to miss the place. It was because I was actually happy to finally be leaving. And that feeling was so far removed from the reaction I thought I was going to have that it actually broke my heart. At least for the remainder of the I'm surprised she didn't leave, like, that night. Like, in the morning whenever he got there. Nice swallow, thanks. Nice swallow. Oh, fucking hell. Let me get some more water. I don't have any water. It's been tainted by squirrel piss, so I have to go get some clean stuff from the well. I'll be right back. Wow wee woo. All right. We got stories to read. Between February of 1983 and November of 1985, I was employed by the United States Forest Service. Back then, the Forest Service ran a kind of earn-as-you-learn program where you can spend a couple of years as a paid intern, learn the ropes, and then graduate as a fully fledged forest ranger if you proved yourself capable. I signed up, was selected for induction, then was sent up to the Willamette. Let me see if Willamette is the fucking pronunciazione. Willamette. No, okay. Willamette National Fart. I started twerking, and then I started twerking. Holy shit, who was that? Terry, with the 50 Aussie buckarongos. $50 dues for the twerk noise. Thank you, Terry. Very much appreciate you. Thank you. Awfully kind of you. Steve Irwin is smiling down from heaven right now. Beautiful. That's what he's saying. When I get a donation, he says beautiful. Did I have a bowel movement? Earlier today, yeah. Not recently. Would I get scared of a female ghost with a big booty? Oh, man, that would be interesting. You're just like running away with a boner. Ah! Oh, and always pronounce Willamette wrong. Yeah, what is it? Willamette. Yeah, it looks so weird. It looks like William. Like William-ette. Like it's a cigarette version of cigar. But it's not. Space banjo music. Yeah, that would be good. That shit's good. It's actually crazy what a mixture that is. I signed up, was selected for induction, and then was sent up to the Willamette National Forest as a trainee ranger. I spent the next 6 months realizing I was just about born for that kind of work. I could not say it couldn't be hard. I'm not saying it couldn't be hard. It was exhausting at times. But the sense of duty, the feeling that you were doing something good and honorable, that was more valuable to me than any sized paycheck. Those first 6 months were some of the happiest in my life, and at the time, I could see myself walking trails and working on restoration projects for the rest of my career. But then, towards the end of '83, I was offered a very different kind of assignment. Having proven myself capable of working unsupervised and having already confessed to enjoying all the solitude the job had to offer, my district ranger, basically the area chief, asked if I wanted to spend the summer of '84 working as a seasonal fire lookout over on Waldo Mountain. Waldo Mountain is around 50 miles east of Eugene, Oregon, and it overlooks Waldo Lake, as well as the Waldo Wilderness area to its north. The lookout is no longer functioning as such today and operates as a kind of public shelter on a first-come, first-served basis. But back then, it was fully stocked. It was a fully stocked. But back then, it was a fully stocked live-in fire lookout that was occupied by either a forest ranger or a trained volunteer all summer long. The usual arrangement was that 3 different rangers would each do a month-long stretch up at the lookout. But when it came to delegating fire lookout duties for the following summer, staffing problems meant that there was only me and 1 other member of park staff available for the job. If I did a 6-week-long stretch up in the lookout from early June until mid-July, my district ranger would make sure it reflected very favorably on me when it came to offering me a full-time position. And so then, about 6 months after the offer, I was headed out to Waldo Mountain with my first 2 weeks' worth of supplies. Now, a lot of you might be picturing the Waldo Mountain lookout as being your typical sort of tower and cabin structure, and that's exactly what I was picturing too before I actually saw the thing. But when I got there, I found it was basically just a small cabin built atop a rocky outcrop. As you can imagine, being so high up on top of a mountain, the views from inside the lookout were nothing short of spectacular, but boy was it cramped in there. It was maybe 12 by 12 feet, with a cooking and sleeping area crammed into one corner, a small map table in the center, and some cabinets and the ham radio crammed in the other. And that was to be my home for the next 6 weeks, and I'd be a liar if I said that I didn't find the prospect of being just a little elf man that lives in a rock, a little daunting. Anything cool happening on the planet you guys excited about? Did you see Helldivers? Everybody was able to bitch enough till the Sony stopped making it so you had to sign into their thing or whatever. Pretty freaking sweet, if you ask me. See, guys, look at that. Look how much power you guys have as individuals. If you bitch enough on the internet, you will get what you want. You only really need like 3 people sometimes too. Find your 3 best friends, and if you all like at, White Castle burgers every day, you might be able to convince them to, use bison meat at some point, should that be something you're interested in doing. That was to be my home for the next 6 weeks, and I'd be a liar if I said that I didn't find the prospect just a little daunting once I was actually faced with it. I thought being alone up there would be easy. The only thing I didn't really consider was the sense of boredom that would set in once my regular duties were out of the way. So being in Fire Lookout isn't all just sitting on your butt and waiting for a fire. Since weather conditions hugely influence wildfire behavior, lookouts monitor things like temperature, humidity, and wind speed in order to assess danger levels and potentially even predict a fire's source behavior based on those previously mentioned observations. This can actually take up a surprising amount of time, and outside of that, lookouts are entirely responsible for maintaining and repairing their shelter and equipment, which, again, can swallow up a surprising amount of time once you realize the summer rains can make your lookout leak like... Reverse. Which, again, can swallow up a surprising amount of time once you realize the summer rains can make your lookout leak like a sieve. But then, once all those observation and maintenance tasks were over and done with, life up on Waldo Mountain was actually kind of boring. I started out by hiking up and down the ridge to get a really good look at the area, and then sometimes I'd head down to one of the lakes nearby to take a bath. I also planned to make the 2 books that I brought with me last the whole 6 weeks, but I finished The Sicilian by Mario Puzo in about a week, and I discovered I could only read The Hunter... Puzo. Silver Lights Productions. What's good? Thank you for the 10. What productions are you working on as of late? Mario Puzo. I also planned to make the 2 books I brought with me last the whole 6 weeks, but I finished The Sicilian by Mario Puzo in about a week, and I discovered I could only read The Hunt for Red October for about an hour at a time before all the technical stuff made my head hurt. So then, one day, with nothing else to do but twiddle my thumbs, I decided to familiarize myself with the ham radio. I've been left instructions on how to use it, as well as what frequencies to dial it into if I ever needed to get in touch with anyone. But I figured that instead of trying to learn on the fly while panicking after spotting a forest fire, I should probably mess around with it a little, if only to test if it was properly functioning. I've been told that I needed to do weekly radio. My favorite radio station. I've been told that I needed to do... God, dude, mixing words is so fucking annoying. I'd been told that I needed to do weekly radio tests anyways, but all that involved was squeezing the little receiver, saying radio check, over, and then waiting for the response. But then, I wanted to see if the rumors were true, and that on a good day I'd be able to use that little old ham radio to talk to folks as far away as Hawaii. And so, like I said, one day I just sat down at the little desk it was mounted on and decided to start playing around with it. You gotta remember, this is way before cell phones were as common as they are today. Back in the early 80s, things like ham radios were a much more popular form of long-range communication, especially among a small band of dedicated hobbyists. That being the case, I figured that there was a pretty good chance of me finding a voice among the static. I didn't even really plan on talking at first. I was simply content to find an active frequency and listen in on whatever was being said. But then, since I didn't hear anything, I decided to start talking. I remember cycling through the frequencies, listening first and then repeating something along the lines of, "This is Waldo Mountain Fire Lookout calling. Do you read me? Over." I'd talk, wait about 10 to 15 seconds for a response, then when I didn't get one, I'd move on to the next. I did this maybe 20 or 30 times, just out of pure boredom really. Then when I did it on one particular frequency around the 14 megahertz mark, I suddenly heard a man's voice coming back at me through the buzz of white noise. "Waldo Mountain, this is Pelican Butte Fire." Pelican Butte. £60 Rottweiler. That's cool. What's their name? Researching for ideas for productions in this chat. Do you have anything on your channel? Oh. Oh shit. What's up, dude? Nice. Let's listen to some music. I always like when people submit their creative stuff.
I've been alone in a closet 7 minutes of having been thinking back to a time when we lived in the present. We've been growing so old, but we're on separate vacations. After all of these years, I miss the back communication, and I know that I miss you too, because I know you. Just go. Hide it on the inside so well. I'm taking my mistakes, buried them away so you can't tell that I know all the things that seem to hold you down. I'm taking your mistakes, throwing them away to say
That's awesome. That one's called Kick Me, Silver Lights. And I see PA in there too, which Pennsylvania represent. That's awesome. Sounds so good. Yeah, it's a very twerkable song. Maybach music. Oh, wait, was that word butte? I forget. Butte. Yeah, it was very good vibrations though, for sure. It was pretty. Wattle Mountain. This is Pelican Butte Fire Lookout. I don't know if that sounds right. Dixon Dallas Dong. What's that? Wattle Mountain. This is Pelican Butte Fire Lookout. I heard the voice say. Receiving you loud and clear. How copy? Over. I didn't really know how to talk over a radio. I was just told to say over when I was done saying something, then over and out when I was finished talking altogether. So in reply, I just tried to wing it as best I could. Copy loud and clear, Pelican. Butte, good to hear you. Then I asked exactly where they were located. The guy said that he was down near Klamath. Klamath. Oops. Yeah, you should do a... I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he should do a Ram Ranch cover. That would be actually awesome. Klamath. The guy said that he was down near Klamath, almost 8 miles south and not too far from Mount McLaughlin and the California state line. I guess that's not all that far for a ham radio on a good day, but... sorry. Pradeep is here. I guess that's not all that far for a ham radio on a good day, but I was still impressed at how clear it sounded, despite the guy being almost 100 miles away. I was also rather pleased to have someone to talk to. I know I talked about how content with my own company I was, but after going 2 weeks with only one solitary face-to-face encounter with another human being, I was surprised at how much I appreciated hearing another person's voice. The guy said his name was Harold, and that he was a forest ranger with the team down in Klamath, and that it was his 5th season in a row acting as many moons since you have, but have you ever thought about going back to creepypastas? I mean, I guess I technically do creepypastas on the bonus content. I'm hoping we get part 3 of the Western horror up at some point. He's still working on that. Wants to get it perfect, which I understand. But yeah, as far as doing it on the channel, I'm not really sure. But I'm hoping, like with the animation channel, we'll be able to explore stories and creepypastas that, you know, aren't limited to just like the true scary story vibe. Kitty cat. Mr. Scarecrow's voice. Is he still around? Yeah, his voice is great. The guy said his name was Harold and that he was a forest ranger with the team down in Klamath, and that it was his 5th season in a row acting as live-in fire lookout. He sounded very experienced and gave me lots of advice, with the most appreciated being his tips on how to keep the cabin fever at bay. For those unfamiliar with the term, cabin fever is when people start to feel restless or irritable because they've been indoors or in the same place for too long. Some folks say it can drive you crazy, and although there's no real danger of that up in a fire lookout, that sense of being trapped with your own thoughts can wear on even the strongest of people. I very jokingly asked Harold if he ever knew any lookouts who went crazy, either from the isolation or just being stuck in one place for all that time. He reassured me by saying no, he'd never known anyone to lose their mind or anything. He'd known plenty to quit, especially the civilian volunteers that were drafted whenever staffing levels weren't ideal, but he'd never known anyone to go crazy. But then, Harold did mention how he thought that I was very brave for taking the Waldo Mountain lookout this season, especially in light of what happened to the last volunteer. Obviously, those are just about the most ominous words a person in my position could ever wish to hear, so right away I asked Harold what he was talking about. He gave me this almost theatrical kind of, He gave me this almost theatrical kind of, "Oh, you didn't know?" And then started saying how he didn't think that he should be the one to tell me. But luckily it only took a little polite cajoling to get him to tell me. And as a matter of fact, I never actually asked what happened to the previous year's lookout. I just took it for granted that a ranger or volunteer completed the season without any sort of event. It didn't even occur to me to ask about previous lookouts or their experiences. I just blindly accepted the position, thinking it'd be a paid camping vacation. There was obviously the slight danger of animal attacks if you strayed too far from the lookout, and I'd heard rumors of a tower up in Washington getting struck by lightning. But aside from that, what else was there to go wrong up here? Well, Harold was nice enough to fill me in. The last Waldo Mountain fire lookout, who had volunteered the previous year, had vanished during the final few weeks of their assignment. One day a ranger went up to the lookout with some pallets of canned food and water, only to find the place completely deserted. They looked around a little, thinking the volunteer lookout was off taking a wash or something of that nature, and then decided to wait for them. An hour or so passes, so instead of waiting any further, the ranger heads back to HQ and figures they'll just check in via radio to make sure the volunteer is doing okay. Fuck. The cajoling thing confused me. Did I say it right? Yeah, I'm going to cajole all of you into funding our purchase of TikTok. Do 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 do. That was a very catchy song. I feel bad he left before I don't even know if you got to hear us play it. An hour or so passes, so instead of waiting any further, the ranger gives him head. An hour or so passes, so instead of waiting any further, the ranger heads back to HQ and figures they'll check in via radio to make sure the volunteer is doing okay. 24 hours pass and no one's heard a single thing from the volunteer lookout, so another ranger heads up Waldo Mountain to check on them, only to find the place is still deserted. The ranger team figured the volunteer had simply had enough and called it quits, but if that was the case, why was all their stuff still up in the lookout? All their clothes and their food was still there. Hell, even their boots were just lying inside the door, meaning that wherever they went, they did so in bare feet, or maybe sandals. Harold said he and the team down in Klamath followed the volunteers' disappearance as best they could. Losing a lookout like that felt personal, and Harold said the Klamath team even sent a few rangers up to... I forget how to say that one. Oh, we still here. Nice. What's up, brother? Yeah, that shit was really catchy. It was awesome. Putting more pressure on your right hip since your left hip was compromised has put muscular stress on your right hip. Anti-inflammatory during the day and an ice pack at night on your right hip helps. I guess, yeah, you could do some stretching. Schmorby? Who's Schmorby? Oh, yeah, I forgot how to say this one. Shit. Wait, whoops. Willamette, that's right. Oh, you're right, it was replaced. They gave you a lion's hip. Now you can jump really high, but just with that one foot. Losing a lookout like that felt personal, and Harold said the Klamath team even sent a few rangers up to Willamette so they could help out with the search and rescue effort. But the volunteer was never found, and as far as Harold knew, they were still officially a missing person. I asked him what he thought had happened to the missing volunteer, and he said it was difficult to say. It wasn't out of the question that they'd taken a nasty fall someplace, maybe even down a ravine or into a hidden cave system, which might explain why they were never found. But then again, Harold said you couldn't also play Clash of Clans. I do not. No, I never got to try it. There's so many games that, like, I feel like I ended up missing out on. But it seems like a lot of them were like core memories for a lot of people. Like Minecraft and Roblox and Clash of Clans. They just don't hit me the same being a 30-something-year-old man. But I wish I could have, gotten into it in my youth. Never too late to develop a crippling addiction. Yeah, do you spend a lot of money on that game? It kind of sucks, like all games are now just like slowly transitioning into mobile gambling bullshit. Like nobody ever like just completes a game. Because like back whenever you kind of had to like have a game be in its complete state, you could just sit there and say to yourself, like, is this going to have value, XYZ amount of years down the line? And now everyone's just like, oh, we'll just day one patch it, or we'll, just keep adding content. And, there's never like just a sense of perfection in a creator's mind. You're sick, C-Money. I'm sorry to hear that. But then again, Harold said that you also couldn't rule out some kind of foul play. Maybe it was a personal thing. The volunteer had an enemy, someone they'd made very angry who was devious enough to realize that hitting them someplace... Oh, god damn it. Maybe it was a personal thing. The volunteer had an enemy, someone they'd made God fucking damn it. Maybe it was a personal thing. The volunteer had an enemy, someone they'd made very angry who was devious enough to realize that hitting them someplace secluded like that might make for the perfect murder. Or maybe, just maybe, this poor soul got themselves selected almost at random by a killer who saw an opportunity and just took it. I remember listening to all of that and feeling the hairs on my arm and neck standing on end. Harold said he didn't mean to scare me, and offered up some final theory involving the volunteer just voluntarily leaving, having gotten sick and tired of the lookout lifestyle that they couldn't even bring themselves to carry their stuff home. You did indeed get the occasional rich kid heading up there to find themselves or something for those 3 months, only to realize that they were wasting their entire summer vacation by week 2 or 3. So if he had to put his money where his mouth was, Harold said that he'd have gone with that. Granted, that final theory was probably the most likely outcome, but I'm also not scared to admit that the stuff that he'd said first had me pretty shaken up. I kept a .38 with me just in case I ran into an overly friendly mountain lion, and that'd obviously work at keeping a person at bay too. But the idea of someone creeping up on the lookout in the middle of the night while I was fast asleep That was most definitely enough to give me the heebie-jeebies. I thanked Harold for passing on this info, and then the next available opportunity, I asked one of the Willamette. Outdoor cosplay is like a ghillie suit. You gotta put on a full ghillie suit. GTA wants me to pay $5 a month for a 100-car garage that I lose access to if I miss a payment. Yeah, I don't understand that, dude. That shit's so cringe. I thanked Harold for passing on the info. Then, the next available opportunity, I asked one of the Willamette Rangers about the missing volunteer from the previous year. They said they had no idea what I was talking about, and that the ranger who had served as lookout the previous summer was one of the same ones who couldn't do it this year. I'd actually worked with this ranger on several different occasions, so I had it on personal experience that they hadn't gone missing, or that if they did, they'd sure turn up again. I mentioned this to Harold the next time I got, and he basically gave it the old, "Oh, that's what they told you, is it? And I suppose they had folks just jumping at the chance to serve as lookouts this year, huh?" Hearing him say that prompted a moment of terrified revelation, so much so that I literally felt the color draining from my face as I listened. It was possible that Harold knew that the Willamette Ranger had trouble finding lookouts for that season, so much so that I'd been asked to complete an extended stay. But even if he didn't know, and it was just pure guesswork on his part, he was right. Once again, I got in touch with the Willamette HQ using my ham radio and asked them if the whole missing volunteer thing was true. My district ranger denied the whole thing and told me that I must have been getting some bad info from someplace. He said that he'd never heard of any Harold down there, and that he'd be in touch with Klamath's district ranger all the same. He claimed that it wasn't very professional of one of their rangers to be spreading rumors like that, and that I was to disregard anything I'd been told. Now, I know I should have just listened to my superiors there at Willamette, but you also need to appreciate the unusual position that I was in. Back then, there just wasn't any Google or smartphones to go fact-checking things at the drop of a hat. All I had with me there was my radio, and I couldn't simply abandon my post to go off investigating all the stuff I'd been told. The only thing I really had to go on was this. Unlike other years, when the Rangers were inundated with hundreds of volunteer lookout applications, it's been almost impossible to properly staff the lookout for the '85 season. That's the thing that played on my mind, until in the end, I had no idea who to believe. As crazy as this might sound, I chose not to confront Harold regarding what he'd told me about the missing volunteer. In my head, I rationalized it by telling myself how Harold might have been mistaken somehow. Maybe he was confusing Waldo Mountain with another Oregon lookout, or maybe even one up in Washington. He might have also gotten mixed up regarding what year this person went missing, and either way, I didn't want to alienate the only other person I could talk to for prolonged periods, that is, who knew what it was like living at a fire lookout. I guess that really does sound kind of pathetic now that I think about it. So I'm just talking you through what I was thinking at the time and why I didn't just outright accuse Harold of being a liar and go back to talking to no one but myself. Anyway, about a week later, Harold and I are talking this one evening when he asks if Waldo Mountain is anywhere near Deschutes. Deschutes, okay. Deschutes, he scores. Scores. How do you spell oogala boogala? Oh man, good question. It's gonna be on the test. Where's Waldo Mountain? I think it's... Oh yeah, where's one? Yeah, baby! I had to check my map table, but lo and behold, God fucking damn it, every time I see it, Willamette. I had to check my map table, but lo and behold, Willamette National Forest was right on the border of Deschutes County. Oh wait, I had to read the first part for it. I'm dumb, my bad. Steak and salad, nice, dude. That sounds perfect. Anyway, about a week later, Harold and I are talking this one evening when he asks if Waldo Mountain is anywhere Anyway, about a week later, Harold and I are talking this one evening when he asks if Waldo Mountain is anywhere near Deschutes County. I had to check my map table, but lo and behold, Willamette National Forest was right on the border of Deschutes County. Harold goes on to tell me that he had an old high school buddy who lived out near a place called Lapine, which, when I checked, was only around 25 miles from Waldo Mountain. This high school buddy just so happened to be a ham radio operator in his spare time, and he and Harold would talk every so often, including that very same day. Harold's high school buddy had checked in to say hi, but also to tell him a troubling story about a break-in that had occurred in his neighborhood just that previous night. Someone had broken into a family home, completely silently, then crept up the stairs. But then, instead of robbing or hurting anyone, the intruder crept into the husband and wife's bedroom and just watched them sleep. The wife said she woke up, saw some shadowy figure looming over her, and screamed. Her scream then woke up her husband, which prompted the intruder to hightail it out of there. No one was hurt, but the whole neighborhood was spooked, and after the news hit the airwaves, the whole of Lapine and Deschutes counties seemed to be on edge. I didn't need to ask why Harold told me all of that, and as I listened, I felt this icy chill run through me. I know I was 20-something miles away from where the break-in had happened, but I couldn't help but picture the intruder creeping up to my lookout before watching me sleep. I had my .38 with me, which made me feel a lot safer. But all the way out there, miles away from just about anything, no one would come running at the sound of my screams, because there would be no one there to hear them. I think he could tell how spooked I was, because good old Harold seemed quick to reassure me. He didn't think that I was in any real danger, but in light of the incident's proximity to Waldo Mountain, as well as what had supposedly happened there a year before, he figured it was worth giving me the heads up, just in case. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept the radio dialed into Harold's frequency, and he did the same with me. He checked in once or twice just to make sure that I was all right, and each time I only had good news to share. But on more than one occasion, I heard something from outside the lookout that had me clutching that .38, shining my flashlight through the dirty glass windows and praying that I wouldn't see anyone approaching through the darkness. Thankfully, I never did see anybody that night. I heard a bunch of things that scared me just about out of my wits, but never anything that I felt might threaten my life. That same fear wasn't quite as strong as the next, and Harold reassured me that there hadn't been any more of those creepy break-ins over in Lapine. But still, it weighed on my mind for quite a few nights after, and I don't think I got more than 3 or 4 hours of solid sleep during each one. And then came the day when I finally got to talk to my district ranger over the ham radio and got the opportunity to ask him some follow-up questions regarding that missing volunteer from the year before. My district ranger, who had been in touch with the folks down in Klamath, said that there had been no record of anyone named Harold staffing any of their lookouts. This wasn't something that I could let go of, though, so I confronted Harold on it, and this is what he told me. He swore on his grandchildren's lives that it really was swore on his grandfather's lives. Swore on his grandfather's lives. 35 jumping jacks, run 10 laps around my neighborhood, 45 push-ups, 10 squats, and 3 more times and call it a night. That sounds pretty solid. If you can, maybe just increase your squats, but yeah, basically as you do it every time, maybe increase by 5 each time or whatever you're comfortable with, like still do it 3 times, but or 3 or 4 total times, but just add 5 to each one. So or maybe, so it goes up to 40 jumping jacks next time. Run, I guess the laps you could, depending on how you feel, maybe it could be 15 laps instead of 10 or 12 instead of 45 push-ups. That's a lot of push-ups to bang out. Make sure you're getting good form on that too. If you need to do less, it's no big deal. It's just more important to make sure your form is always good with stuff. He swore on his grandchildren's lives that he really was in an old fire lookout tower down in Klamath County, and it just wasn't in service anymore, and neither was he. Harold told me that he'd spent 30 years in the Forest Service, and for his final 5, had indeed spent every summer up in a fire lookout. Now, he was retired, but since his wife had passed, he found that he missed being out in nature during those long Oregon summers. With his old lookout being permanently freed up, he decided to head out there, fixed it up a little, and then spent the summer steeped in nostalgia. Harold figured that he'd come off as some lonely old kook if he told me the truth, so instead, he told me a little white lie without ever imagining that he'd be eventually found out. He swore that everything else he told me was the truth, especially all the stuff about the volunteer going missing, and truthfully, I believed him. It made perfect sense to me, as much as I needed it to anyway. I just didn't want to lose that voice in the static, the one that I was counting on more and more to keep me sane. The first few weeks had been a breeze, and although the addition of Harold had been welcome, it had not been entirely necessary. But then, towards my final week, on week 6, I realized that I had just about reached the limits of my endurance for isolation, and I had actually started to consider Harold a good friend. And with that in mind, you can imagine the fear that I felt one night when Harold got in touch over the radio with a distinct sound of terror in his voice. As I said, we had been keeping our radios tuned into one another's frequencies at night, but just in case anything untoward happened. It had been quite... Make me sandwich. Oh. Do 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 ch. Do 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 ch. As I said, we had been keeping our radios tuned into one another's frequencies at night, just in case anything bad had happened. It had been a quiet evening, but then at around midnight, my radio suddenly burst to life with the sound of Harold's voice. "Jake, it's Harold," he said in this low, shaky voice before asking, "Are you there? How copy, over?" Hearing the urgency in his voice, I rushed over to the radio and began asking him what was up. He then told me in this frantic, fractured style of speech that he'd heard someone moving around in the darkness outside his lookout tower. Then, after grabbing his flashlight and heading out onto the walkway outside his cabin, he realized that there were several dark figures in the woods which surrounded him on 3 sides. Right away, I told Harold to get the hell off the frequency so he could call for help. But Harold then tells me that he'd already tried to contact his HQ down in Klamath, but that no one seemed to be manning the radio. He needed me to contact my range... Big Let's Regathering, but you just pretend to be one of the fans, so yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? He didn't even show up. What a fucking jerk. Anyways, who's going to the orgy? I mean, we have a big pit of mud, so someone's got to get in. Everyone's like, ew, dude, what the fuck? Ew, brother. What the frack? He needed me to contact my Ranger HQ so that they could call the cops down in Klamath. I told him I'd do that right away, but before I could twist the frequency dial, I heard him shouting, "Wait!" Harold then started to explain in the same terrified voice that the cops needed to know which Pelican Butte to drive out to. Apparently there was already a Pelican Butte campground down in Klamath County, and the cops needed to head to the old lookout tower Harold was manning, which was off Falls Highway near the fucking word I can't pronounce. 4-meal. Do you remember the Splode commercial? I don't think so. What's that? Exploded. Just 4 mile. That makes sense. I was like 4-meal. Liquid Splode. I don't recall that. I'm just hallucinating all of you guys. You guys are all government agents just keeping me busy. Otherwise, I'd be liquid sploding. Apparently, there was already a Pelican Butte campground down in Klamath County, and the cops needed to head to the old lookout tower Harold was manning, which was off Falls Highway near the 4-mile flat quarry. If I didn't pass along this crucial piece of information, Harold would be screwed. I remember frantically scribbling all that information down and asking Harold to repeat the name of the forest road he mentioned at one point. And then after waiting for his response, this is what I heard. Harold's voice suddenly broke through the static and said, "Oh God, they're coming up the stairs." I told him to lock and load the rifle he'd mentioned having with him and to shoot anyone who came through the door to his cabin. I then heard Harold screaming, oh my God, what the hell are you people?" And the next thing I heard was a loud bang, then another, and another. Harold let out a scream, then once his own had sort of petered out, something else unleashed an ear-splitting, inhuman roar before the transmission suddenly went quiet. I've faced some pretty terrifying moments in my life, but that right there might just take the cake. I thought I just heard Harold, a man who I'd grown remarkably close to over the previous 5 weeks, being shot to death in a... Duke, the legend with the 2, thank you. You never stop tripping from those shrooms? Probably not. It just doesn't stop. Philip K. Dick. He used to think that about him, and recently declassified FBI documents prove that he was right. Kind of the records were about every time he called them ranting about secret records. Wait, what? Can you elaborate? Like, what specifically? That he had, like, friends or something that were, like, fake FBI agents or something? I thought I'd just heard Harold, a man who I'd grown remarkably close to over the previous 5 weeks, being shot to death in a lookout tower almost 100 miles from where I was sat. I flew into a full-blown panic, trying desperately to dial into the frequency of the Willamette. I flew into a full-blown panic, trying desperately to dial into the frequency of the Willamette HQ. Once I had one of the Rangers on the other end, I began to frantically relay everything I'd heard, including all the stuff about going to the correct location. Then once they'd promised to contact the Klamath County Sheriff, I switched back to Harold's frequency and began calling out to him across those airwaves. "Harold?" I said. "Harold, are you there, buddy?" And the airwaves stayed silent. nothing but the cold buzz of static. I begged him to say something, say anything. I told him the cops were on their way, that he just needed to hang on and everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew things most probably were not. Harold had mentioned spotting several people circling his tower in the woods below him, which meant the odds were not in his favor. So, when he set the radio's handset down, it hit me that the man I'd gotten to know so well over the previous 5 weeks had just been brutally murdered before my very ears. But then, just as my head sank down in my hands, the radio buzzed into life and someone began to speak. "Hello?" someone asked. The voice sounded like it belonged to a younger man. "Is anyone there?" I rushed over to the radio, announced my presence, then asked where Harold was and if he was okay. In reply, and in a way that I could almost hear him grinning, he tells me, sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Harold is dead." I heard laughter before the transmission cut out, and in reply, I started yelling about how they wouldn't get away with what they just did. I told them the deputies were already on their way, that they were all going to rot in jail. Then, when I figured whoever was on the end probably wasn't listening anymore, I ceased my rant and let go of the push to talk, only to hear laughter coming from the other end. It was maniacal, gloating, satisfied. But just as I was leaning forward to change the frequency and rid myself of the taunting howls of a murderous stranger, they spoke once more. "You're so stupid," I heard them laughing. "I can't believe you sent the cops out there." The voice had changed almost completely, but in my confusion, I hadn't quite realized what was going on yet. I reached over, picked up the headset, and once again asked where Harold was. "There is no Harold, you moron," I heard it reply. "It was me this whole time, and you ate it up. What kind of sad, lonely piece of human trash are you? You ate up every word." I was speechless, stunned into a dumb silence, and all I could do was listen. "God damn," the young man said. "I knew I was good, but I didn't think I was that good." He let out another long, wheezing laugh, then, once he pulled himself together a little, he asked if I was still there. I didn't know what else to say. I picked up the handset, and the first thing that came to mind was the first thing out of my mouth. I said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." "And you should kill yourself," came the reply instantly, with the man screaming those last 2 words so loud they were almost lost in distortion. As I leaned over to the radio set to change the frequency, more of that same warped maniacal laughter poured out from the small tin speakers, only to be suddenly silenced with a twist of the dial. To say I felt foolish would be the understatement of the century. That guy dangled a little bait in the water, and not only did I bite, but I swallowed hook, line, and sinker too. There was no Harold. There was no missing volunteer lookout from the year before. But then again, I bet some of you figured that one out long way back. I also bet the guy knew so much about being a fire lookout because he talked to Oh yeah. What's up, Luke's? I also bet that guy knew so much about being a fire lookout because he talked to one a whole bunch, most likely using the same ham radio he used to talk to me. Then, I don't know, maybe what was intended as a one-time prank. I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. Wait, I'm supposed to call? Then, I don't know. Maybe what was intended as a one-time prank just snowballed. It wouldn't be too hard to fake all those sounds either. The gunshots and the screams, I mean. But what must have been difficult for anyone in their right mind was having the patience to drag me through a 5-week-long con before delivering that horrifying final performance. That's what, for me at least, makes this all seem a lot more than just a playful prank. He didn't just string me along for a day or two, call me a sucker, and then disappear from the airwaves to waste some other radio operator's time. He kept things going for more than a month. He put hours into talking to me, into building his character and earning my trust. He put on the gravelly smoker's voice of a man in his 60s, and he did so for hours upon hours upon hours. Then in the end, the kid, I guess, who ended up screaming at me through the airwaves, sounded like his balls had only just dropped. He made me believe in a person who didn't exist, and as much as that speaks to the sheer magnitude of my own idiocy, I think it says a lot about his being a psycho, too. And I spent the rest of my final week in a kind of semi-depressed daze. I felt like the single stupidest person on the face of the earth, a weak-minded, pathetic excuse for a man who got so lonely that he fell for the dumb prank of a bored, psychopathic teenager. And that's the thing, too. I didn't just fall for it one time. I fell for it again and again and again. Every time I picked up that handset and started talking to Harold, I let that black-hearted little brat take me for a ride all over again. I'd been humiliated, stripped of any and all pride, and when the time came to leave the lookout, I was only too happy to put the whole thing behind me. That was a weird story. I thought he was going crazy or something. I don't know what the fuck. What a cocksucker. You're right. That kid was a real cogsugger. Yeah, I don't think I could stay true to the bit that long, just to troll an old man that I become friends with. He was having a Discord call, or Skype. I was Skyping with a old man. Yeah, nearby, ready to kill him. Something like that. It was very strange. I just thought he went insane. Oh yeah, didn't they make an American Psycho 2 movie with Mila Kunis in it or some shit? Yeah, I'll probably put that second story last just because it like, being that it was all just sort of a prank, kind of in a weird way almost makes it like less scary, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't like, I thought it was going to be like this dude legitimately went insane, or maybe he hit his head or some shit and was just kind of going bonkers out there. But Sora, nice. Yeah, dude. Take my word for it. Fucking exercise is like the best antidepressant anybody can ever employ into their life. You feel weird, Charlie? How come? You got a scrummy ache? Alright. I promise this next one will be quicker. Not the story, but well, actually the story is a little bit quicker, but the break that I'm about to take just to get some more water and then take some magnesium. So I will be right back in a wee bit. So recently I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And they said, well, doctor, that's a real weird way to... How'd you figure that one out? That's a real weird way to diagnose me, sticking your fingers in my ass. I don't know. We'll workshop that one. Okay, bend over. We're gonna see if you have schizophrenia. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm crazy now. Crickets. All right. Last story, by the way. Can you believe that? It's the last friggin' story of the night. I like Norm Macdonald, or not Norm Macdonald, what's his name? Mark Normand. Oxy, what's up? You just missed my hilarious joke. But I like Mark Normand as a stand-up comedian. He's like, hey, geez, guys. Whoa, better say something, slightly cheeky. Whoa. Oh, you heard it. Thank God, Oxy. Thank God you heard that joke. But I feel like it's got to be, really exhausting, constantly playing that, know her. I barely even have played with her. You know what I mean? It just... It's weird because he kind of talks like that in real life, too, and I can't tell what came first, the chicken or the smeg, when it comes to, his speech pattern. Read your emailed submission tonight. I don't think so, just because it is late. What's up, Kirk? Rest in peace, Norm. I know, dude. Norm Macdonald was a voice of logic amidst the madness. He was the only one that could... I don't know. He was really good at, taking people who were kind of, especially people who were, very, psychotically, left-leaning, or even, very politically oriented, or basically taking themselves way too fucking seriously for shit that doesn't matter, and just, breaking down their barriers, you know what I mean? That was a skill I feel like not many could do. Getting on stage and making a joke about, Hillary Clinton, killing people and, actually making her laugh, That's the power of the jester in the, the rock, paper, scissors game where the jester defeats the emperor by revealing his truth. But, if he gets crickets, then the emperor cuts his head off. Yeah, he was Colonel Sanders. David, thank you for the one. What I'm about to tell you is something I still go to therapy over. It happened back during the summer of 2008. I started going to therapy around the start of 2009, and I've been going ever since. It wasn't my idea, it was my parents', and in a way, the only reason I still go is to keep them from worrying themselves sick over me. Not that I don't derive some small benefit from it, but what I tell my parents, my therapist, and I talk about, and what we actually talk about... Oh wait, that sounded weird. Did Joel lose his marbles? Yeah, you see, whenever the doctor stuck his finger up my butt, he found out that I had schizophrenia. So, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to question science, you know. I'm sure they tested it on many rats. I feel bad for the rats' insides. Not that I don't derive some small benefit from it, but what I tell my parents, my therapist and I talk about, and what we actually talk about, are two very different things. Around the start of the holiday season back in 2007, I was a sophomore Earth Sciences student at UC Davis. The university offers some summer placements to students who want to gain a little work experience, and although they're mostly dreary research assignments, I happened across one that piqued my interest in a way the others didn't. In short, I had the opportunity to spend the summer working as a fire lookout in the Trinity National Forest. Your hole was brown. This is the doctor talking. Your hole was brown, and the color is symbolic of crazy disease. Yes, doctor. Here. I need to check again. I forget. I forget if you're crazy. My mom comes in. Is he crazy, doctor? Let me look. Yep, it's brown. Anybody with brown poop is nuts. You gotta have green poop to be normal. You're so smart, doctor. Thank you. He just like sniffs his fingers. And Norm MacDonald walks in. What the fuck was that guy doing? It's weird here. It was a 3-month-long... Okay. It was a 3-month-long placement, but I'd be paid for my time, and completing a piece of long-term field research would look very good on my resume. I applied, I was accepted, then several months later, I was told that I'd be posted to the Tom Head Mountain Lookout. Make sure I'm saying Tom Head wrong. Sick and Wrong. That's the name of the show. That's a review. This show is sick and wrong. It pushes the boundaries. Pushes the boundaries of writing and humor. Lois. Lois, the doctor is back. I applied, I was accepted, then several months later I was told that I'd be posted to the Tom Head Mountain Lookout, which was about 30 miles west of the city of Red Bluff, and about 130 miles north of Sacramento. Seeing as I didn't own a car back then, I had to catch a bus all the way up to Red Bluff. From there, I hitchhiked along the 36 and then hiked up into the hills until I reached the flat-top peak of Tom Head Mountain, where the old fire lookout tower stood. The first thing that struck me was that the 20-foot-tall lookout tower was made of wood. I figured a fire lookout tower would have been built with less flammable materials, but since it had been constructed back in the 30s, I guess wood was all they had at hand or something. It didn't make for the best first impression. After all, that tower was supposed to be my home for the next 3 months. But in the end, I managed to get myself settled in, and the place started to feel more cozy than decrepit. A big part of the assignment involved what we call numerical weather predictions, or NWP. I won't bore you with the exact science of it, but it's somewhat similar to the kind of prediction models that allow news channels to give long-term weather forecasts. But then, in the context of being a fire lookout, we can use these same models to predict the dry spells or heat waves that might result in a wildfire, because prevention is always better than a cure. Working on weather analysis kept me occupied for a precious few hours each day, while hygiene and hydration became important aspects of my daily routine. But outside of maintaining myself and my equipment, I had very little to keep me occupied. To kill time, I'd go for walks in the woods surrounding the lookout tower. Sometimes I'd visit the abandoned miner's cabin. Sometimes the sweet serenade succulent succotash. The people watching the videos after the live stream don't know how close they were to hearing Peter scared of the doctor. Lois. Lois, the doctor. I'm so scared, Lois. Oh, Peter. Peter. Fuck you, Peter, you fat. Lois. Alright. Alright, everyone shut up. Everyone shut up! Shut up! Make the voices stop! Man. That doctor really knew what was up. Alright. Sometimes I'd visit the abandoned miner's cabin. Sometimes the old campground that lay just beyond it. I'd keep my bear spray with me just in case I had any close encounters of the fur kind, haha, but I never ever saw any people around. At first, the seclusion was a welcome escape from the hustle and bustle of the big city, and by the end of the first week, my social battery had been thoroughly recharged. But by the end of week 2, once the boredom had really started to set in, I found myself just pining for human contact in a way that was very much surprising to me. I had my old Samsung cell phone with me, along with a very efficient solar-powered cell phone charger, but the lack of solid coverage meant it was more useful as a paperweight. If I walked up to this one spot on a ridgeline, I could manage to squeeze the odd text message through, but any sort of phone call was out of the question, and that was something I hadn't anticipated. It sounds foolish to think about it now, but I figured that since I was so high up on a mountain, getting decent cell reception wouldn't be an issue, where in actual fact it was all about your proximity to them. Communicating through the odd text message was all well and good, but by the end of that first month, being the only living soul for miles really started to grind on me. When a Trinity Forest Ranger showed up with my second month's supplies, I was so happy to see her that I almost hugged her when she stepped out of her 4x4. She could tell how happy I was to see her, and she joked about me going a little stir-crazy up there all on my lonesome. She was nice enough to stay a while and drink some of my bad coffee. Then once I'd hauled my supplies from her trunk, she drove off into the sunset. After that, knowing I wouldn't see another person in the flesh for a whole month, it actually made me kind of emotional. You don't realize what social animals we are until you really cut yourself off from other people. I once read that in prison, solitary confinement is one of the cruelest punishments at the guard's disposal, because being isolated from your fellow man can drive a person crazy in a frighteningly short amount of time. I'm not saying I started to go crazy up there, but for a while, it sure as hell felt like it. It started towards the end of my second month. I'd be out on one of my regular walks, and I'd see something move out of the corner of my eye, but then when I'd turn to look, nothing. There's a lot of wildlife out there in Trinity, so for the first half-dozen times it happened, I figured it was just a fox or a raccoon or something skittering away from me, frightened. But then, after a while, the shadows in the corner of its... Young Hollywood was good. Oh my. Also, for anybody that's seen Baby Reindeer the show, what the fuck? Me saying that I'm going live gets a bunch of likes, but all my other banger ass tweets don't really get a whole lot. Ever do a drunk stream? I've done them in the past. On my birthday streams. I get pretty stupid. Wait, I don't even remember what I was talking about. Fuck, dude. My brain's turning to mush. Oh yeah, Baby Reindeer. Yeah, it's similar to Baby Shark. But, so like the person, it's basically about a stalker. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but I have a inclination that the person who wrote this show that quote-unquote is based on their real-life experiences, have a hard suspicion that they're full of shit and that they've heavily embellished most of what happened and also the character of who their stalker is or whatever. I don't know. There's just a sensation that you get from it that it's just all nonsense, you know? And anyways, I guess tomorrow, what's his name? Pierce Morgan is going to interview the woman who is accused of being a stalker in that show, the IRL one, because she wants to clear her name. So maybe that's just a way to promote the show, which is pretty funny. Actually, it's a great way to promote the show, to be honest. Maybe she gets a cut. Maybe it's all fucking bullshit. Just all one big, like, pish-posh. You know, the weirdest thing is that in a weird way it does seem kind of real in the fact that, like, nothing too wild ever really necessarily occurs in it. It almost, and that's, which is kind of like how real life is. But I guess what annoyed me most about the show is just that the guy, it reminds me of like Courage the Cowardly Dog, where like he just meow, like he's like scared and shit, but just doesn't fucking do anything about it. I kind of wanted him to be eaten or something. Eek. But then, after a while, the shadows in the corners of my eyes started getting larger and clearer, until eventually they weren't just in my peripheries anymore. I'd see something moving in the trees up ahead of me, too big to be a bobcat or mountain lion, the wrong shape to be an elk or deer. I'd stop, look, listen, but nothing ever moved, nothing ever stirred, and by the time I started to call out hello into the empty woods ahead of me, I developed a genuine concern for my own psychological well-being. I tried a dozen different things to lessen the feelings of loneliness and isolation, and although talking to myself might make it sound like I'd lost my mind, I can assure you that it helped. Pouring my thoughts out onto this page helped too, as did singing my favorite songs, and after a day or two of accentuating the positives and eliminating the negative, I began to feel considerably better. But then came the day when, as I set off on one of my routine walks through the woods, I caught the glimpse of a human figure standing among the trees. I turned my head to look in their direction, and unlike all the other things I'd seen moving in the corner of my eyes, this person didn't dart off among the trees. Quite opposite of that, in fact. They remained as still as a statue, limbs very rigid, completely unmoving. In all honesty, the person's sudden presence scared the crap out of me, and the odd, unnatural way that they were standing did not help either. But then, the more I stared at this mysterious figure, standing stationary among the trees, the more I realized that it wasn't a person at all. I took a few steps towards it, consumed with curiosity, only to discover that what I was looking at was some kind of wooden effigy. Someone had constructed a sort of skeleton out of wooden planks, and then, after attaching what looked to be a chicken wire skull and rib cage... What? Do 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 do. Chicken wire skull. I don't know if like the chicken wire holds all the bones together or some shit. Someone had constructed a sort of skeleton out of wooden planks. Then, after attaching what looked to be chicken wires and skull and a rib cage, had stuffed the cavities with a variety of dead roots and leaf stuff. I remember being almost mesmerized by it, not because it exuded any kind of eldritch power or anything crazy like that, but because it was so exquisitely constructed, and I remained in this sort of blissful state of thoughtlessness until a rather alarming thought occurred within me. That effigy had been staked into the earth less than an entire football field away from that lookout tower, and it almost certainly hadn't been there the previous day. And that meant that someone had walked all the way up Tom Head Mountain in the middle of the night after putting a ton of work into their eco-conscious art installation, only to stake it just meters away from where I was laying my head each night. I could think of a dozen innocent reasons why someone might do such a thing, but still, there was something about the thing's presence that just didn't sit right with me. This probably sounds incredibly juvenile to some, but as I stood there, face to wooden face. What are we doing? We are recording for tomorrow's video, fire lookout stories. We're just chit-chatting and prolapsing. Some purple and pink gloss paint. Yeah, that'd be nice. You guys should all make me an effigy and take a picture of it and send it in. I'd like to look at it. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. It's fantastic. I don't remember the rest. Rosebud. This probably sounds incredibly juvenile to some, but as I stood there, face to wooden face with the mysterious effigy, I was suddenly filled with the overwhelming urge to knock it over. I didn't like the idea of going off about my business. I didn't like the idea of going about my business and having this twig man just standing there looking all creepy like he was. It's never something I do now, but I obviously can't speak for the much younger, college-aged me who raised a hand, reached out, and prepared to knock the thing off its little stubby... Too many words. Stubby timber feet. Can't brush my hair, undress me anyway. 6 inches of prolapse. Face to face or face to chicken wire Burning Man reject. This is true. Grandma asked me what a chode was the other day. I almost pissed myself. And you're like, well, Grandma, take a look at this. Oh! Jules! Oh, Jules! How incredibly odd looking. Fire lookout stories. I've seen some while off-roading, but nothing unusual ever happened. I've seen a few weird things on trail, though. Yeah, it's like people who actually do the job of the fire lookouts. I guess it's from like different times in history, in areas where they actually need it for big wildfires and stuff. Do I drink whiskey? On my birthdays, I would drink the peanut butter whiskey stuff, but now just the thought of it makes me... And then whiskey itself, just so harsh on the throat, you know? You know, if I ever do drink again, I've got it all planned out in my head. I'm probably going to drink vodka orange juice, but like a really, really pure vodka. Like the fucking Dan Aykroyd, you know, Alien Skull bullshit. Yeah, Screwball was the one that I was drinking on my birthday. You're moving to the Appalachias. Do ever be careful. Do I spit on it like a gentleman or just ram it home? Mama didn't raise no fool. I don't know what that means. Great vodka and fresh grapefruit. Oh, yeah. Also, we begun research for Dark Web Stories Volume 3. So that should be skinteresting. Dead Guy Whiskey by Rogue. What's that all about? Metallica whiskey is good. I feel like it's probably all just from the same fucking factory. Nursing home stories. Or nursing story. Yeah, just nursing by itself. It's never something I do now, but I obviously can't speak for the much younger, college-age me who raised a hand, reached out, and prepared to knock the thing off its little stubby feet. But I also remember this feeling of intense hesitation as I reached out to touch it, how it almost felt like I was desecrating some sacred sculpture. The sensation halted me in 1 second, but in the next, it felt like a challenge. And then, with one heavy stone, I sent this effigy falling back into the dirt with a little dry thrush. In the moments that followed, I felt the hairs of my arms standing on end, as I was struck by the sudden cognizance that whoever planted that twig man might still actually be close by. I looked around, then over both shoulders, making sure the coast was clear. I don't believe in any kind of sixth sense, but if there ever was a time in my life where I felt like I was being watched, it was then. I decided not to finish my walk that day, and I headed back to the tower to make sure that I had that second can of bear mace handy. I wouldn't say that I was scared, more apprehensive of what that effigy's sudden presence might actually mean. I later considered the possibility that some renegade artist with a little penchant for hiking might have mocked that thing up on the fly. At first, I had this irrational image in my head of some unhinged redneck hauling the completed effigy up to the mountain like a character from an unwritten Thomas Harris novel. But the alternative, that it was a spur-of-the-moment creative thing, was a considerably less unnerving explanation. No one had put that thing there to spook me. They probably didn't even know that I was in the area to begin with, and the more I thought on that, the more I felt strangely guilty for having shoved it over. The next morning, I decided to head out on one of my morning Just finish your prereqs for nursing? Nice, dude. Fucking nursing sucks. No, it's fine. It's a good job. Someone had returned, possibly in the middle of the night, and the return. Wait. Next morning, I decided. Oh yeah. The next morning, I decided to head out on one of my morning routines. And while I was at it, I'd stake that twig man back into the earth and just leave him upright, just as I'd found him. I completed that morning routine and jotted down a few early morning weather observations, and then set off in the direction of Tom Head Springs with some soap and a washcloth. When I reached the spot where the twig man had been lying in the dirt, I was startled to find him standing upright again. Someone had returned, possibly in the middle of the night, and had returned that twig man to his vertical position. Again, I wasn't outright frightened by this, just more unnerved. I also figured that was me who made. I also figured if that was me. My buddy told me a quick story about what happened one night on a base in Iraq to one of his subordinates and himself. Oh, what happened? Dude, those freaking military paranormal stories are always the weirdest shit. But I guess there's just a lot of bad juju around there. With all the death and whatnot and the ancientness of the land. Comes Schedule 3, it'll destigmatize it a little more. Cannabis nursing, interesting. Does that just mean you get to get high as fuck and be a nurse? Welcome to the club. I also figured that if it was me who made the Twig Man, this silent companion I could go visit on hikes every so often, I'd also be kind of bummed if some jerk-off came along and just pushed him over. Besides, if he was someone else's silent but stoic companion, maybe he could be mine too. I gave myself a scrub down at the springs, made my way back to the lookout, passing the Twig Man as I went, and then spent the rest of the day making weather observations and reading the books that I had brought with me. Then, once the sun went down and my very early bedtime approached, I climbed into my sleeping bag and then attempted to catch some shut-eye. I think I might have just been on the cusp of drifting off when a deeply alarming scent began to drift into my nostrils. It was the smell of smoke. I leapt out of my sleeping bag, threw on my shorts and boots, then was about to radio the ranger's office over in Redding when a flicker of flame in the woods below caught my eye. The fire was close, very close, and by the looks of things, it was still small enough for me to fight. I grabbed the tower's small fire extinguisher and rushed down the stairs, and then bolted towards the source of the fire. If I could put it out there and then, I'd not only save the state of California hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I'd also save acres upon acres worth of protected forest. And I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, and then when I saw what was burning, I experienced one of the strangest sensations of my entire life. It was the Twig Man. That's what was burning. And although I carried on hurtling towards it, I'd never seen anything so repellent in all my life. The desire to put the damn thing out and prevent a potentially massive forest fire, that thought alone kept on propelling me through the woods. But upon considering the dual questions of who set the Twig Man on fire to begin with, and why, that was the first moment of fear. After putting out the fire, wait, I want to tell you a quick story. He said that inside the tower room the floor was covered in blood. No one else in the room but could feel others' presence. Did the blood stay there? What's up, Sarah? But upon considering the dual questions of who set the Twig Man on fire to begin with, and why, that was the first moment of fear. After putting out the fire, I got to thinking of who or what might be to blame. I couldn't rule out vandalism as being the motivator, but even the most thoughtless of vandals would think twice before setting a wildfire in a national forest. I also couldn't rule out the possibility that the person who had set the Twig Man on fire was the same person who put him there in the first place. I doubted very much that someone who'd taken the time to create such a sculpture would also be willing to burn the entire forest down. The very nature of the Twig Man suggested its creator felt a reverence for nature, not a contempt for it. But in turn, that raised another question. What if Twig Man's creator set him on fire because they knew I'd come running to put him out? Since I was just a few days from my second and final resupply, the same ranger that had visited me the previous month decided to head up to the mountain a little early, both to drop off my supplies and check out what remained of the Twig Man. When she got there and I walked her out into the woods, there wasn't much left of him to look at, but the sight of him provoked a very familiar reaction from the ranger. She had all the same questions I did, but All that matters is that I dealt with the fire both quickly and professionally. In her words, I should have been very proud of myself. For the next few days, I felt perfectly content to be alone. It was like the fire and the praise that I'd gotten for my decisive action had topped up my social gas tank, so to speak, satisfying that crucial third layer in Maslow's pyramid of needs. Maslow's? Being told that you're a good little boy and getting your head pat. It's Maslow's fucking top brass. Yeah, some of the shit that I've heard about people's tours in like Iraq and Afghanistan, the paranormal stuff is fucking bonkers, dude. Like I mean, I don't even know where this story came from to begin with. I think it was like r/paranormal, but it was, they heard like screaming and stuff, just disembodied screaming, and then all of a sudden somebody like sort of appeared in front of them in like a flash, and it was like a guy walking toward them with all of his like skin missing, and just screaming until eventually just like, I think it was like he either exploded or fucking like disappeared again, but the blood from them was disembodied creaming. Yeah, that's me right now. If you weren't so crippled, you'd stalk me. No! Just like peeking around a corner in like a wheelchair. I hear you creaking down the alleyways. Talk to his wife for more stories. Oh, okay. Was she out there too? It was like the fire and the praise I'd gotten for my decisive action had topped up my social gas tank, so to speak, satisfying that crucial third layer in Maslow's pyramid of needs. Oh yeah, it's hierarchy, right? Satisfying that crucial third layer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When I went on my regular walks, I didn't see any shadows moving in the corners of my eyes. I wasn't overcome by that creeping feeling that I was being watched. I felt at peace both within and without. And that was the start of my third and final month up on the mountain. But towards the end of it, that same dread-inducing feeling that I was losing my mind returned with a vengeance. Having finished all of the books that I brought with me, and having grown sick of journaling my own depressingly repetitive stream of consciousness, I was even more plagued by tedium than ever. And on the surface, this seemed to lead to a drastic decline in my mental health. I started seeing things again, like people moving in the woods, and the encroaching sense of paranoia resulted in a handful of completely sleepless nights. The exhaustion I began to feel exacerbated every other symptom until at one stage, I started to wonder if I could complete the full 3-month term. I tried as best I could to power through, taking things a day and a night at a time, until finally, I had just 7 more nights to go. I tried to mark the occasion with a minor celebration, and opened up a can of warm soda that I'd been saving for a very metaphorical rainy day. Then, after an evening spent trying to keep my spirits high, I settled down to sleep. 1 down, 6 to go, I told myself. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Hours later, I think maybe around 1:30 or 2 in the morning, I opened my eyes and heard what sounded like something moving among the trees below my tower. It was a very heavy sound, like something large and bipedal was stomping through the underbrush, and seeing as that was a zoological impossibility, I decided to climb out of my sleeping bag and go take a look. Having picked up my flashlight on the way out, I aimed its beam down into the darkness below me, and in an instant, I saw them. To my horrified astonishment, I discovered that the tower I was in was surrounded by at least a dozen hooded figures. and beneath me, just out of sight at the base of the tower, was the source of the noise that I'd been hearing. As alarming as the encounter was, I didn't immediately understand the significance of the stranger's presence. There was always the possibility that they were simply a group of late-night hikers who happened across the tower and were merely curious. But when I called out to them and asked them to identify themselves, I didn't hear a word in reply. I took a few steps along. Pee-pee head. I took a few steps out, and then headed down the stairs a little so I could see what was occurring at the base of the tower, which, if you remember, was only around 10 to 15 feet down. More hooded figures stood below me, and the sound that they were making came from the fact that they were staking large bales of twigs underneath the tower. It was kindling. They were going to set the tower on fire, with me inside of it. The first thing I thought to do was rush back into the cabin to report what was happening via my radio. While I was doing that, I threw on my clothes and boots, grabbed my flashlight and my survival knife, then walked out onto the balcony, just in time for the fire to start. I didn't waste a second. I ran along to where the stairs were, then went down 2 or 3 flights so that the fall wouldn't break my legs. I figured I'd have to jump, as whoever was surrounding the lookout would probably be expecting me to head down the stairs once they set the fire to it. And since they seemed perfectly content to roast me alive in what amounted to a very serious crime, I figured they might be too focused on I'm a stoner, I'm a stoner, I'm a stoner. I'm a stoner, stoner, stoner. And since they seemed perfectly content to roast me alive in what amounted to a very serious crime, I figured that they didn't really care. I figured that they wouldn't be too excited with me escaping the scene. I remember jumping, knocking the wind out of myself, and then being almost certain that I'd sprained an ankle. I remember jumping, knocking the wind out of myself, then being almost certain that I'd just sprained an ankle until I put weight on it. Somehow, I was fine, and I also took the nearest hooded figure. Wait, what? Somehow I was fine, but I also took the nearest hooded figure to me by surprise, which in turn gave me the brief but golden opportunity to slip past him if I moved at high speed. Somehow, I was fine, and I also took the nearest hooded figure to me by surprise, which in turn gave me this brief but golden opportunity to slip past him if I moved at speed. I honestly thought that I was about to get shot or stabbed or whatever, and I guess the person I ran at nearly did get me with something. But it was a stun gun. As I ran past them, they lunged at me, and I saw this little tiny bolt of lightning dancing in the air for a split second before I slipped past them and made my escape. I remember hearing this furious scream from someone screaming about me getting away, but by then, I was long gone, half running and half sliding down the mountain as fast as I could in complete darkness. I was lucky not to fall and accidentally kill myself, but there was no catching me, and I made it all the way down the mountain without seeing so much as a flashlight behind me. And I ran, until I was too tired to run anymore. Then after what seemed like hours upon hours of just scrummaging through the scrub, I came across a little place calling itself the Rocky Ridge Hunting Club along with... I should have said scrummaging through the scrub. It was those raccoons again. Then, after what seemed like hours upon hours, of rummaging through the brush, I came across a little place calling itself the Rocky Ridge Hunting Club, along with a small group of hunters preparing to take advantage of the dawn. Dawn's calm. And by that point, the sky was so light that I could point out the plume of smoke rising from Tom Head Mountain, and within the hour, choppers were making passes over the lookout, creating artificial rain while the ground-based fire crews rushed to the scene. I should have felt exhausted. I should have been dead on my feet. But when I saw that first chopper fly over us, heading in the direction of Tom Head, I felt 10 feet tall. I'd made it to that hunting club just in time to avert a major ecological disaster, and I felt like a hero. But I was not treated like one. Even after I explained everything that had happened, with the twig man, with the hooded figures, with the fires, it was me who got the blame for burning down the Tom Head Mountain lookout. According to the fire crews, there was no evidence of an accelerant being used, but it was impossible to tell if the source of the fire had been inside or outside the cabin. I guess it was my preposterous explanation that swayed the opinions of the Forest Service, but on their command, I was arrested on charges of arson, endangerment, and destruction of government property. My defense attorney told me that I dodged being charged with a very serious environmental crime by the skin of my queef. By the skin of your queef, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. My defense attorney told me that I dodged being charged with a serious environmental crime by the skin of my teeth, as in the kind that's only one step down from outright terrorism. She also told me that my best option by far was to basically plead temporary insanity. At my trial, she made it out like I was some upstanding citizen who'd merely been unfortunate enough to have suffered a kind of psychiatric crisis as a result of severe and prolonged isolation. I pleaded guilty, got 100 hours of highway trash picking upping, and a mandatory psychiatric evaluation at the behest of the state of California. I tried to get my parents to believe me, but unfortunately they took my attorney's arguments as gospel and instead of the truth, chose to believe that I'd gone temporarily crazy. But unlike my attorney, whose interests ended up... It is kind of fucking insane how attorneys are. It's like as soon as they don't get any more money from you, they are done. How are you? Tomorrow, ensemble completes or states, and I'm low-key so scared, excited since we haven't won since 2007. You got this. You're about to bring that trophy home, baby. Hey, see ya, Max. Take care. Have your friends send in their stories to letsreadsubmissions@gmail.com or Reddit. But unlike my attorney, whose interests ended... But unlike my attorney, whose interests ended once the money dried up, Mom and Dad wouldn't let it go. They hounded me until eventually I gave in and agreed to go to regular counseling sessions. I didn't want to take pills for something I knew that I didn't have, so to them, therapy was the next best thing. But these days, I don't talk to my therapist about how I'm scared to lose my mind again, or how it might be a symptom of a much more frightening form of disease. I talk to him about how painful it can be when you tell someone the absolute truth, and they choose not to believe you for the sake of their own sanity. Love from the Philippines. I love my Filipinos. They are my favorite friends from across the way. Stories from the Philippines, I can definitely look into that. Oh, shit. Well, we are done, my friends. We are done with the stories for tonight. Oops. Do 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 do. It's a beautiful day. It's written by Scrody McBoogerballs. The outro is, yeah. You guys gotta think of something funny for me to say. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. I release new videos every Monday and Thursday at 7 p.m. EST, and there are super fun live streams on Sundays and Wednesday nights. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/Let'sReadOfficial, or send it over email and you might even hear your story featured on the next video. And if you want to support me even more and grab early access to all future narrations and bonus content over on Patreon, or click that big join button to hear about the extra perks offered for members of the channel. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all of these stories in big compilations, remastered, sounding amazing, and they're all located anywhere you listen to podcasts. All links in the description below. Thanks so much, friends. And remember... Hey, Claire, what's going on? Good to see you. Thank you for the 21 months. Yeah, sorry we're kind of coming to an end here. Gonna do a Scottish accent. I've a wee little dog named Wesley. Wee little dog named Wesley. Because I heard your British voice in one story, but Scottish. Yeah, I'm not very good at really any of them. Wee little dog named Wesley. Wee little dog named Wesley. I guess that's the Irish when you sound more sing-songy. I got a wee little dog named Wesley. Wee little dog. Oh, I can't really roll my R's with the with the Scottish. And remember, hey Claire. Yeah, we'll do that. Thanks so much, friends. And remember, say hi to Claire. Thanks so much, friends. And remember to say hi to Claire in the comments. Claire Connolly. Alright, friends. I think these are going to be some bangers. It's going to be a classic. It's going to be a certified hood classic Let's Read video. You really can't go wrong with any sort of outdoors topic on this channel. Max, I appreciate you. But yeah, I love you lots, guys. You're awesome. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight and showing support. If you want to check out more of these live streams, there's a live stream playlist, or you can click the live stream tab to go back and listen to all this one or all the old ones. But otherwise, I will get this up and edited over on Patreon. It's only $1 a month over there for early access to all the audio, and you get you can do a free trial too if you want to try that. Otherwise, it's like $10 a year, I think, or some shit. Yeah, it's like $10 a year, which is kind of crazy. On like if you sign up for the whole year. But yeah, I will get this up on YouTube, same time, same place tomorrow, or rather today at 7 p.m. EST. Who's Claire? Somebody came in and just donated a little bit. Well, not somebody, Claire Connolly. She said, I would appreciate a hi. So there you go. Now everybody will say hi to Claire. All right. Thanks for chilling, guys. Thanks for being awesome. Super positive community. Always appreciate that. Continue to stay positive, stay out of trouble, stay healthy, stay exercising, lift those weights, pursue your passions. Pradeep is coughing up a lung behind me for some reason. But otherwise, I will be back streaming on Sunday, so I will see you guys Sunday night for that. And go follow me on Instagram at letsread.official or Twitter at letsread. He's got a little bit of a ghost in him there. All right. Goodbye. Have a good one. We'll see you again so soon. Oh, yeah.